last 10. You're stuck here for half an hour.
Okay.
All right.
Just so I know what's happening.
Welcome to a special presentation of the Racing Roundup Show, live from Kulwicki Park in Greenfield, Wisconsin. We are inside the Brooks Pavilion, which has a lot of Allen's trophies and memorabilia, and we have some items on display from some private collections that you just need to see to believe. Today we are celebrating Alan Kulwicki with his close friends, NASCAR Championship team members, and race fans that have come from across the country. It's a celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend. The Racing Roundup Show started in 1985, and one of our first shows held in an audience setting was at Alan Kulwicki's send-off party, days before he left for North Carolina to pursue his NASCAR dream. Since then, we have followed Alan's amazing path, both on our show, interviewing him about a dozen times or more, and in his memory since Alan's passing 30 years ago. We are live at Alan Kulwicki Park at the corner of Highway 100 and Cold Spring in Greenfield. All you have to do is look for Alan's Hooters number 7 Cup car. It's on display. He won 2 races in this machine during his 1992 championship season. Let's get the party started. Here is the host of the Racing Roundup Show, Jim Trado.
Hey, gang, how are you? It's such a wonderful occasion to join you. It's a celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend, all weekend long. We're having a ball. Last evening, if you were able to join us, we were at the UWM engineering department. They have a Kulwicki garage in there, named after Alan. We had a great show. Great to see that Marilyn and me agreed to come back and join us today. What great stories we had. Enjoy that show. We reposted it. It's clean and mean at racingroundupshow.com or on our Facebook page. And today, it's another celebration of Alan Kulwicki at Alan Kulwicki Park. We're inside the Brooks Pavilion. This was built over the many years trying to get this together. $6 million, I believe, was the number, or $3 million. I don't know the number, but it was a lot of money. And through the Alan Kulwicki Fun Run Walk, through donations, this was actually the park dedication day. I got the flyer. I was here for that.
Did you?
Yep, I was here. But there were 2 Fun Run Walks around the Milwaukee Mile that race fans got to contribute and give money towards this park and variety of children's charities to make it possible. But the Brooks family, owner of Hooters, his son Mark passed away in the plane crash with Alan. Mark Brooks, Dan Duncan, Charlie Campbell, and Alan were in that plane 30 years ago today. And the Brooks family put a lot of money towards this pavilion, as did Miller Brewing Company. We're in the room. It's called the Tom Marchese and Ted Lake Community Room. 2 guys that were so impactful and involved with racing in Wisconsin for 50, 60, 70 years. Miller Brewing Company had a special tie with them. Tom Marchese and the Marchese brothers owned race cars and promoted what was the Milwaukee Mile back in the day when they had 6 to 7 USAC stock car and IndyCar races a year. I bring all that up because Ted Lake was an observer at Milwaukee, very much an ally of all people, but really worked at USAC as an observer for IndyCars and worked at the Milwaukee Mile tirelessly on the observer crew since 1926 through 1996 with the IndyCars. Teddy passed away a few years ago, but his involvement with Miller Brewing Company opened doors for a lot of us, including us 400 fans from Wisconsin that Ted said, you need to buy tickets. My friend in Phoenix is having a race, and it's a NASCAR race, and you got to be here. So I got to sit in the stands for my very first NASCAR race, thanks to Teddy Lake at Phoenix. November 6, 1988, Alan Kulwicki went on to win his first NASCAR Cup Series race. So as things progress and things continue to swirl and tie together, we welcome you to this program. You'll hear from a lot of folks. There's a lot of memorabilia here we see you may never see again. This park is a wonderful pavilion. The Brooks Pavilion is open to renting it for events. The Greenfield Lions Club does a great job. They're actually putting food on here today for folks. They really take care of this building, and we hope you enjoy it if you're not able to join us here today at Alan Kulwicki Park for this event. I thought we'd start off with me not talking as much or as fast, which is hard for me to even consider. But I'm so excited to have next to me the only guy who wrote a book about Alan, NASCAR champion against all odds, and also one of my favorite people on this earth because all the things he got to do and see and still relates to us about how it is a message that he continues to put out there is the legacy of Alan Kulwicki. You oversaw many of private masses, Padre. You saw
Yes.
a lot of Alan and Bobby Allison over the years at the racetrack. And you also got to know Alan much more personally than most of us ever would try to. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's just great to be here. But what is really impressive is the crowd that is here this morning. I just love it. You know, I didn't know what to expect when I drove down, but it is just amazing. I was thinking about how many years have gone by, and as I was looking at Alan's uniform over here, the Xerox one, do you think he'd still fit in that?
Yes, 100%. Anybody have any suggestions that there'd be a false idea? No. It might even be baggy on that guy now.
And I have no doubt. You know his workout, how he used to work out all the time, and his training schedule. I just figure he'd fit in that. You know that.
Yep.
But one of the things that we do is we forget that he would age, that he would have aged, and he would be quite a bit older now. So I think that's always important to remember. But, you know, we lived at that time in some of the greatest days in Wisconsin history and Wisconsin racing. And so, you know, when Alan proved himself here in Wisconsin, that was no small accomplishment, because you had Trickle and Refner, and not only that, but you had a lot of people coming in from out of state, like Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin, and then all of the other short track drivers too. And so, you know, when Alan did what he did, it was a great accomplishment before he ever went to NASCAR, which in itself was even something that was beyond belief.
I believe there's a plaque in NASCAR Hall of Fame's exhibit that when Alan was inducted in February 1st, 2019, they asked the family, and they would ask anyone else that was in that induction class. It's right here on the shirt. He went in with Davey Allison, Jeff Gordon, Jack Roush, and Roger Penske. Each of those individuals had a car representing their display. Today we have that very car, thanks to John Safro. He brought out chassis 007 to display here at the park. But in thinking back to those moments and the Hall of Fame ceremonies and all the accolades, Alan never forgot where we were. He just thought we forgot about him. If you recall the story about him coming back for Alan Kulwicki Day on January 24th, 1993, he didn't think people would show up. He was really concerned. He talked to our show founder, Terry Jeffords, a lot about, they won't remember me. I've been gone too long. And 7,000 to 10,000 people showed up at Greenfield High School that day. What a great day that was. I want to touch base with you on one really cool moment. Alan Kulwicki won his very first of 24 NASCAR Cup Series pole positions. He loved to qualify fast. He won it at Richmond International Raceway in 1986. That was in March. He also committed to coming to Wisconsin that same weekend, fly in, fly out, to accept a Wisconsin Fans for Auto Racing Wisconsin Driver of the Year award, I believe. And you got to present it to him that night. And he showed up.
Yes, you know, and I've got that picture. It's one of my prized pictures of just Alan there presenting the award. But, you know, that night went on because it was a packed night and he had to leave. And I remember that Mike Joy was along with him. And there's a famous story about Alan and trying to get rid of all of the short track tires that he had burned up during the summer.
Okay.
You know, they had them stacked up in this garage, on the side of the garage. So they took them all, loaded them up, and it was a situation where he had a couple of his friends that they put them all in the truck, and then they drove them out to this place that was kind of a deserted place and threw them over the fence and got rid of them. And then they came back to the garage, and it was the only time, Alan being Alan, that he got out a six-pack of beer and shared it with them. You know, but that was Alan. But then when Mike Joy came, he wanted to go and get some souvenir, you know, from that spot where those tires had been thrown. So they drove on the way to the airport. They drove there, stopped. I think he got a brick or something like that to take back. But it was just great. That was a great night. It really was.
That was 1986 when Alan won his first NASCAR Cup Series race in November of 88 in Phoenix. Yes, there were 400 of us in the stands. Ted Lake was able to squeeze me into victory lane. I'll never forget the entire day. But that evening, my brother John and I were flying back on a red-eye out of Phoenix Airport. And I want to bring up Mike Joy's name again because Terry Jeffords said, hey, we got to go. And that evening, I got there, I think, after this happened. But Terry Jeffords was sitting at the bar waiting for Alan to show up, who was the last to come of the people that are assembled. I walk in, well, two things. I walked in with my brother. We're still sunburned on one side because you're sitting there facing the stands and the sun comes this way. We're wearing our shirts from the day. I don't know if I had a Kulwicki shirt on or not. I might have. But we were getting on that red eye to get back to school the next day. We walk in from the track and we look, and there's a big U-shaped table in the Embassy Suites Hotel bar, and at the head of it is Mike Joy waiting for Alan to show up to plunk down next to him, which I thought was really cool that they were that close in friendship. The second thing I remember is I was told afterward when Terry was sitting at the bar, he didn't see Alan approaching, and Alan actually had a bottle of champagne in hand. Popped that thing, walked in the room like, hey, this is cool, and there's a little bar over here. The seating was there. He spotted Terry, took that bottle of champagne, and poured it right down Terry's back. And Dennis Arneska, I think that's one of his prized possessions that he always kept on his desk to remind him how the good times are and what fun that was and what fun it had been. Padre, when you had the chance to write this book, thank you for doing it, number one. I will admit it's probably one of 3 books I've read cover to cover in my life. I kind of like skimming because I got through school. I got through school, but I didn't study every page. But thank you for writing that. That was a labor of love for sure.
It certainly was, and it took me, I think, about 7 years to put the whole thing together. But we did a lot of interviews, and of course, a lot of it was, my personal remembrances and my encounters with Alan. He was just, he was totally different off the track than he was on the track, and he would tell you that. One of the things that I remember most was I was at Daytona, and I was taking photographs for Stock Car Racing magazine, and Alan was busy. So if you knew Alan, you just backed off and let him do his thing. You weren't going to bother with him. So, and this was Alan. About 2 weeks later, he calls me at 7:30 in the morning. He always called me at 7:30 in the morning. And he said, "This is Alan." I said, "Alan." He said, "Where'd you go at Daytona?" He said, "I even went to your hotel room looking for you. Where'd you go?" I said, "Alan, you were busy. I wasn't going to bother you." But he had a Rolodex mind. And, everybody was part of that Rolodex if you knew him. And he would circle back and get to you and find out where you were at the time. But one of the greatest privileges I had in life was he called me up and asked me if I wanted to go to the NASCAR banquet in New York and be at his table. And I said, "Alan, you've got all kinds of sponsors and you've got all kinds of people that you owe a debt to." But, he wanted me there, and that was one of the greatest honors in my life, was just being there at his special moment.
I had the chance through Terry Jeffords, who again was Alan Kulwicki's 97 WLPX sponsor. From those days forward, he and Alan were close, and Terry was Alan's confidant. In the middle of the night, he'd call him or spend an hour in calling him. And I got to know stories about Alan. I didn't know him well. I wouldn't say I was a friend of Alan's, but man, the stuff he was worried about and struggling, especially after he lost the Xerox sponsorship in 1990, late in the year before the 91 season, he was really stressing. And we had him on our show, I want to say 4 or 5 times in that 8-week span in between getting a sponsor, not having a sponsor. And we have a great, I'm teasing it now, yes, it's a show. We have Jerry Miller with us today, who later on will tell you how the Hooters sponsorship became something that Alan was able to obtain in Atlanta, the 4th race of the 91 season. Jerry had something to do with that, so we'll tell you that story in a moment. But those troubling times and those moments, Alan and Terry were really talking heart to heart about what to do, how to do it. And I really think back to those conversations, Terry would kind of share with me what they talked about, and I learned more about Alan then, about everything he cared about. And as focused as he was worried about those 15 employees and their families.
Yes, he was.
Because he was having to pay their checks out of his pocket. And thank goodness he was, according to what Marilyn told me last night, Alan was cheap. So thank goodness he had some spare cash, right?
Alan cheap? But just building on that.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably come up to this when we talk to a few other people. But he also would give the different members of the crew money to put aside so that their children someday could go to college, or it would be invested in their future. So, that was another thing about Alan. He wasn't just worried about the employees, but he was worried about their children and about their families.
So when it came down to discussions, you mentioned something I want to bring up as well. My friend Marilyn Shaw, I don't know if Marilyn's here today, I can't tell, I hope she is, or with us in spirit. Marilyn actually went to a lot of NASCAR races and was very much a part of what Alan was doing. Her husband, Grant, and Bill Strom owned a towing company together, and that's where Alan actually rolled his first dirt late model into. It was their towing shop that he worked their car on. He worked in their car first. Marilyn's been a fan and a friend of Alan's since. But Marilyn had a similar story like yours. She would go to 14, 15 cup races a year, sometimes buy a ticket, sometimes get a garage pass. I don't know if Alan arranged for some of those, but she said half the time she'd be in the garage just to kind of see what's going on, make sure he knew she was there to support him. Half of those times, he never saw her.
Yeah.
Or he looked right through her. Or he wouldn't know she was there. Or the other half of the time, he would call her up and say, "Hey, Marilyn, sorry I didn't say hi to you in the garage. I was a little busy."
Yeah.
A week after that happened. I mean, he was just that way about, I've got my business to do. I think I saw him say a quote. Saw a lot of YouTube videos this week, just kind of getting myself wrapped up in this. He said, it's like going to a boxer between rounds in a prize fight. I don't have time for people in my workspace, in the garage, hanging out signing autographs between practice runs.
I always remember one time at Daytona, remember you came out the back side of the garage area.
Yep.
And there was sort of a souvenir stand, so forth, maybe a hamburger stand there, and there were some places that you could sit. And I remember once that Alan and his crew, he was walking out, and he stopped, and then he got out his briefcase. He always carried his briefcase, and he sat the crew down, and they were going through things right there. That was how he just concentrated, was always thinking when he was at the racetrack, and even a little bit beyond when he was going home, about how he could improve his racer and how he could improve his chances of winning.
And he never stopped thinking about it. I mean, it was always ever present in those conversations. And we were going to have on some crew members that worked with Alan for longer than 2 hours. That, I think Paul Andrews said that was the shortest amount of time an employee worked for Alan Kulwicki Racing. He started up at 10 in the morning on a Monday, never showed up after lunch. And that was it, 2 hours.
2
Noon.
hours
See ya.
gone.
But you had to buy in to what was going on. You had to know and appreciate.
Yes.
And knowing how spiritual he was, Padre, you might have seen a different, or maybe more than one side that we never got to see, about how he would go to daily mass. He would always seek out a Catholic church to go to, whatever racetrack he's racing at.
And sometimes he would drive around. I remember there's a story about him driving around with somebody looking for a priest. I think he wanted to go to confession or something like that. But that was just the type of person that he was. And the other thing I'd have to touch on a little bit was...
We got all day, Padre.
You got all day?
Yeah.
You get me straightened out
I
here.
got you.
I seem to be leaning to the left, or something. But,
As long as you're closer to me, that means I'm closer to that guy. I'm good.
Alan in his wallet had this list of qualifications for who was going to be his wife someday.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
And so it was just a checklist. And I always remember that Humpy Wheeler and I would trade notes on who he had dated last. Because I would go down to Charlotte.
This is the Catholic priest, by the way, keeping notes on Alan's dating life.
Yeah.
Continue.
So anyway, Humpy would say, I saw Alan at Thomas Aquinas Church, and there was this beautiful girl, just beautiful, and she knew every Catholic ritual there was. She knew how to go through the missalette, when to genuflect and all that. And I said, Alan, where'd she go? And he said, she didn't like the same kind of music as I did, so she's gone. And then another,
make the list.
Yeah,
the list.
off the list.
Yeah.
And then another time, he was dating another beautiful girl, and she just disappeared. Alan, where'd she go? Well, she smoked about 5 years ago, and I didn't want you. She might start smoking again, and I couldn't have that. But the greatest one of all was one time Alan was dating this gal, and where did she go, Alan? Where did she go? And he said, she had a propensity for wide hips, and I do not want to marry somebody eventually that's going to have wide hips.
Wow.
And his uncle said, the dumb fool, doesn't he realize that when women have babies, they get wide hips? But I love that story. I don't know how many times I've told it, but that was Alan on the other side, from the racing side. He was just that kind of person, fun to be around.
Are you ready to start talking about some stuff on the racing side?
I can.
Joining us right now on our program, we welcome in the man behind the wrenches, the 1992 NASCAR Cup Series champion, crew chief Paul Andrews via video. Paul, how are you this morning? Thanks for joining us. Can you hear us okay?
Hey, Jim. Hey, Father Gruber.
Hey, good to see you.
I hear you. You hear me fine?
You look great, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're just enjoying and celebrating Alan today. Man, just the stuff you guys went through and the joy I have in saying I get to talk to Paul Andrews about Alan Kulwicki, and I've gotten to know you through the ARCA garage and seeing you and Evelyn and knowing all the things you guys went through with Alan, and yet enjoy that success and knowing the satisfaction of winning those 5 races and knowing all the wonderful things. It's kind of cool that you got to be a slice of that. But I want to go back to year 1, Paul, when Rusty Wallace and you were racing around the country against Alan in the ASA. You kind of left the sport, if I recall, and Rusty and Alan had a discussion, and Alan was looking for a crew chief. Could you tell us how that went that day and how you got hired on as a crew chief for the 1987 season?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, it's good to see both of you guys, and everything's going good on our end of it here. We're still working hard, but working on getting rid of stopping that soon. But Rusty and Alan were, back in the ASA days, we raced against Alan when I was with Rusty, and I did kind of take a break for a while and a couple of years, and Alan and Rusty were at the awards banquet in New York, and Alan was telling Rusty all his woes about help and crew chiefs and trying to get the right people, and then Rusty said, "Well, I've got the right guy for you," and then that's kind of how that started, and then Alan called me up sometime around shortly after the banquet, of course, but I don't remember exactly when it was, but it seemed like early December, maybe late February, I think, or late November, but definitely early December range. And then we talked over the phone for a couple of different times. Ended up driving up, or not driving, he flew me up to Charlotte because I was lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma then. He flew me to Charlotte, spent the weekend, I think I flew up there on a Thursday night or something like that, and, spent the whole weekend with him and left home, I think, Monday afternoon. So spent the whole weekend with him, was in the shop, went out with him at night. We, went to dinner and stuff like that, stayed at his apartment. We got along really good. We hit it off, pretty much on the phone, to be quite honest. And we had knew each other before, just because we raced against each other in ASA, but we never really hung out. But yeah, we all knew each other back then. But yeah, so like I said, stayed with him at his house. Before the weekend was over, we made a decision what we were going to do. Made a plan. How he hired me, and then I had to make a plan on how to get there, when to get there, and then where to go when I got there. So then I think I spent that Monday or whatever it was looking for apartments. Found a place to live. Had my 2 young little Tim and Troy Andrews kids with me. I'm trying to remember how old they were. That was they were in a. Seemed like Troy was maybe 3, and Tim might have been 5. It's just kind of a ballpark guess, but anyway. But so and then I had to move them from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Charlotte, North Carolina, and we haven't looked back since.
It's great to know that you have been part of this, but also give yourself more credit than I think other people might not have, or continue to say Alan did it all himself. Or in reality, that checklist, that list of things to do, that agenda for this race weekend, you were also in charge of looking beyond that each and every weekend, what the tasks were and what Alan checked and double checked and all those wonderful elements. I want to ask about the time you had to spend with new employees. I'm not talking about the guy that was there for 2 hours. I already snuck that one in on us. But when you had employees that stayed, that clicked, that light bulb went off, how much enjoyment was that for you, knowing you got the right guy? You guys didn't do just one job. You guys did a lot of things. How did that go when you finally said, okay, this guy's got it, we need him around, and he's buying in on what we're doing?
Right. Yeah, that's the deal. Alan hired most of the people. If I brought someone to him that we thought might work, or suggested him, he's the one that did the hiring, and sometimes he did a good job, sometimes he didn't. But it was really cool. We got those guys that clicked. Yeah. And the biggest bottom line is we all had the same background. We were all short track racers of some type. Back then everybody wanted to get their foot in the door. So you had that group of people, and some of those people are great too. Some of the people just want to get their foot in the door, worked out also. But yeah, just trying to, explain how everything works along the way as we're going. Really there was no like here's what we do, here's how we do it. You definitely give them some of that, but a lot of it is trial and error, trial by fire. Really, just throw them in the fire and see what happens, and if they work out real well and they respond well, then that's the ones you love.
You guys had a great group of guys. Man, were you guys dedicated, and it was just a poetry to watch how you guys did it. I was even, I took it in because I sometimes had a media pass and I could go in the garage, and I went to, I think, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Phoenix every fall. It was kind of my little trail of calling on the payphone because Terry Jeffords wanted the show to do on Saturday on the payphone in the upstairs. Like at Atlanta, they had a payphone on the outside of the racetrack on the stand side doing a show. But when I got a chance to go when I got a chance to go in the garage, it was amazing that even during the race, or I wanted to be down there when the race ended to see what you guys were doing. The system you guys had, and Peter Jellin, and how he just unpacked and packed methodically, even just getting the hauler ready. So when you guys were done with teardown or whatever it was ready to go. I mean, you guys all knew your jobs. That was so impressive. Go ahead, Padre. I'm just babbling on here.
A couple things about that. They only had, I think, 2 sets of heads. So they would fly, some of the crew members would fly the heads home so that they could work on them. And one time, NASCAR only inspected the top 5 cars. And they were taking the engine apart, and somebody came up and said, "You don't have to take your engine apart. You're not in the top 5. They said, "You don't understand the situation. That's what we have to do." But one of the things I wanted to talk about with Paul is I always remember when I was writing the book, and I came and I was interviewing Paul, and I was sitting across the desk from him, and I was busy writing notes and not paying too much attention to his facial expressions. And all of a sudden, he pulled out a drawer and got some Kleenex out, and I knew that he was crying as I was interviewing him and he was talking about Alan. And I think what it proved to me was that all of the guys that ended up in Alan's final crew, it was much more than a job. It just was something that came from the heart.
And Paul, I know that you carry on the memory of Alan, but also in the greatest way, you guys got to celebrate. You guys got to enjoy that. And I know Alan was saying, you know what? After we win this championship, my friend Terry Jeffords told me, Alan, they had a great call one day on January, I want to say, of '93. And he said, I need to stay a little further away from the race car than I've been to get myself in a position where I can enjoy this a little bit and also help represent our sport as a champion. Did you see a change in him, Paul, after he won the championship? When you guys got back to work, probably Tuesday morning after the banquet, you might have got a day off, right? And then you went back to work right after.
Yeah, we did actually. It was you definitely seen a change. It had a lot of pressure on him to people was pulling at him from all different areas, and he knew he had to make a change as far as the way he ran things, as close he was on the car, and we had already implemented those things. Actually, before the season's over, he knew things were going to. Not that he knew he was going to win the championship, but just knew that in order to get better and bigger, we had to, he had to make changes. He couldn't be in the shop as much as he wanted to be. But yeah, that definitely was a lot on him. A lot of different, a lot of people pulling at him, even to the point where. We went down that was the time of the era when we went to Daytona and tested every year. Everybody did, open testing. And so, we roped off the pits and just try to keep people away. And, and that was I remember the media had a fit because they couldn't get to him. They said, you can get to him, just not right now, not while we're working, not while we're in the middle of everything, So, yeah, that was, it was definitely a challenge for him, but it seemed like he was working through it very well, actually. And we were too as a team. We knew we had to make adjustments, and we did, and everything was just moving along like it should, really.
Paul, I saw you in the ARCA garage the last decade or so, working with Cunningham Motorsports and Chad Bryant Racing, working out of your race shop, racing and winning championships with Chase Briscoe and other drivers coming through. You also were a crew chief after Alan's passing with. You stayed on. You carried that torch with Jeff Bodine, and then you guys did that Watkins Glen reverse the race strategy with your race guys to implement that. I mean, there's more firsts after Alan did a lot of firsts with you guys. You are also crew chief for Jeff Burton, I believe, in the Cup Series. I think at Roush at one point, or were you there? I'm just trying to put it all into perspective because you're still in this sport now, Paul. Let us know what you're doing these days.
Yeah, Mike. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's it's a sport I've loved. I've loved it for forever, I think. But I'm sure it's not quite forever. But I loved it I love what I do. I love being part of the sport. I love racing. It's just something that was instilled into me years ago, and that's still a big part of me. But yeah, right now I'm the shop foreman at Kyle Busch Motorsports, the truck series team. We actually race tonight or this afternoon here a little bit, but I don't travel. This is the first time I've had a job where I don't travel, and it's definitely an adjustment. I do miss some of the travel, but then I also enjoy spending some time with my wife and my grandkids that we have. So it's a lot of fun, doing what I do right now. But yeah, after Alan, Jeff and I bought the team. We stayed with him for a couple of years, however long it was, and then went to Krampus Haas at the time, which eventually turned into Penske Krampus with Jeremy Mayfield. And then we won races with Jeremy, went to DEI with Steve Park, won races with Steve, and then after that's when I went to Roush Racing with Jeff Burton. And it just seemed like in that era right there is kind of didn't really have the right fits for me, or me as a driver, crew chief combinations, one right fits. Ended up going to Petty's. I went to Xfinity race team with Casey Kane, Aikens Motorsports. So yeah, just kind of bounced around a little too much, but it seemed like just wasn't quite doing everything I needed to do. It wasn't winning, so that's always the bottom line, so you always got to win.
It's great to see you here today. Thank you for spending time today. You got a race to prepare for. You got a team to root on, a couple of chances, and I know that the boss gets in there gets 5 chances to drive the truck this year, so I'm sure those are special moments for you as well, working with such a great group of hard racers, man. There's a lot of racers in that shop today, I'm sure, that came from disciplines similar to what Alan kind of assembled, because KBM does a lot more than just put 2 trucks on the racetrack a given weekend. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. I want to say it for Paul Andrews joining us. And Padre, Father Gruba, thank you, Padre.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man. We're celebrating Alan all weekend. Thanks to you.
Right.
Thanks to you and others joining us here on the show. Thanks, Paul. My best to Evelyn as well.
Talk to you later, guys.
See ya.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
See ya. Padre, thank you.
Thank you.
How long do you stick around to sign these books? I knew you were going to sell a few, too.
What time we got? Oh, probably about a half hour.
All right. There's your
maybe.
warning, people. If you're here at Alan
Yeah.
Kulwicki Park, line up to get Padre's autograph on his very own book, Alan Kulwicki, NASCAR Champion Against All Odds. And you've done a reprint, right, since the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and it's got the Hall of Fame in it, and and the KDDP, a little bit about that in it. So, it's just a total reprint and worth getting.
It's great to see you here.
Yeah.
Also, he's got a special assistant today. Emerson Lehman from today, CBS 58 News is here as a friend of Padre and a friend of Sleeveless Bob Schneider. But also tomorrow morning, it reminds me that I got a chance to spend 5 hours in the race shop with Johnny Safro and that 007 Hooters Ford last week with Emerson Lehman, who's got a story tomorrow morning on the CBS 58 Sunday morning show. It's going to be on between 7 and 8 a.m. tomorrow. It's another way we continue to celebrate Alan, and thanks to Emerson for his time doing that and spending time here today with you.
And thank you for letting me be here. My next assignment, 3 o'clock, Confessions in Neshgoro, if anybody's interested. But
that line will also form without me.
Take care. God bless you.
I'm here for Father Gruba. Thank you, Padre. We are rolling here at Alan Kulwicki Park. It's a celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend. We'll be right back. I think our next guests are Marilyn, me, and John Jeffert. Stick around.
You are watching a special presentation of the Racing Roundup Show live from Alan Kulwicki Park in Greenfield. Alan attended Pius High School in West Allis and graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from UW Milwaukee. In the 75-year history of NASCAR, Alan stands alone as the only driver with a college degree to earn the NASCAR Cup Series title. Like our show on Facebook, watch our Tuesday night shows live and at your convenience online at racingroundupshow.com. Today, we're hanging out with Alan's friends, crew guys, and fans. It's a celebration of Alan Kulwicki Weekend.
Welcome back to our special edition of the Racing Roundup Show. This coming Tuesday starts our 39th season of weekly motorsport shows on Tuesday nights. The Racing Roundup Show will start season 39 at Polly's Pub and Eatery, 6 p.m. Central Time. Fresh content every Tuesday from here through September. We've been doing it since 1985. As a matter of fact, one of our first shows of this program in an audience setting was Alan Kulwicki's send-off party back in 1985 when he moved to Charlotte to continue his NASCAR dreams and lived there permanently. We also want to thank and recognize Arlene Kulwicki-Dobner. She's here today. That's Alan's aunt and Alan's first cousins, Janice and Mike, are here. Janice Krivitz and Mike Dobner. Let's give them a hand, please. Arlene Dobner and her two kids are here. That's Alan's aunt and two first cousins. So it's great to see them here as well as part of this celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend. We now are joined by a couple of folks we had some fun with last evening, but the stories, I had to cut them off. We got more stories to tell here today. It's our pleasure and honor to welcome in the next two guests to the show, an original WLPX crew member and son of Cherry Jeffords, I'll say it that way, and the man who organized last night's wonderful affair at the UWN, John Jeffords, and the one, the only friend of racing and friend of a lot of people over the years here in Milwaukee, Marilyn Mee. Marilyn, welcome back today.
Thank you.
Great to see you guys here today. John, we were gabbing last night again. Where we, I think she's on 4, Dave. We were gabbing last night again after. We could not stop talking about stuff. It's just a wonderful time to be around, and you had a chance to celebrate with Alan.
Yeah,
What did you learn last night after your wonderful toast and talking to people?
So here's the issue we're now into, is that last night was a celebration of Alan, the college student.
Yep.
Alan, the bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and Alan, the engineer. The college students last night never saw Alan live, right? They're
Yep.
only in their 18 through 22. So we were trying to inspire them on what the man, the student, the engineer, the racer, Alan Kulwicki was. But now here today, I'm going to go out on a limb. I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm guessing a lot of these people actually saw Alan race live during his career. And so that's the way I'm kind of phrasing it, is last night was a celebration of the student and the engineer, and tonight we celebrate the Alan Kulwicki that we all saw on his arc. I keep using a firework analogy, that we saw him streaking up into the sky. Some people here were close enough to Alan. They felt the heat, the heat of his career. Some people here, I see Stan, actually wear a piece of the gunpowder that helped launch him, and we all got to see that incredible conclusion there at what was the Atlanta 500, and watch
The Hooters 500. I was there, yeah.
And watch him finally get to that final peak and win his goal, his dream of the Winston Cup Championship.
You mentioned Stan Johnson, who did the original designs. He was with Alan Kulwicki back in the red 97 LPX days. He's got a picture of the quarter panel he brought along. He also designed, well, hear the story, he designed the iconic white and orange Hooters paint scheme, and Stan brought the original drawings with him here today. Marilyn, we're kind of going on the Wayback Machine, but it's so cool to have you here sharing these stories. I'm telling you. It's been a ball just hanging out with you for a while.
Well, and it was really the more stories we tell, and the more stories I've heard other people tell, the more things I remember. Running into Faye.
She's here again today.
Faye Hendricks from the Slinger days, and it's like just seeing Faye. It was like, oh my gosh, I remember this now, and I remember this now.
She told me before the show there's stories we'll never be able to tell. With a microphone nearby.
Faye was sort of everyone's mom at the racetrack, and because Alan and I met and started dating that the first time he became Slinger Speedway track champion, and Faye being Faye was, kind of the relationship expert. And listening to Father Gruba and you talking earlier, I realized, man, no wonder I got axed off I was the one who broke up, but no wonder I would have been axed off the list only because I'm not Catholic. However, I want to go on record as saying in the clergy, to me, there is no one more wonderful than Father Gruba. And I think Alan had such regard for him and just such love for Father Gruba, and I think it's so wonderful that he's still involved in the sport. I was another one of those people who got a chance to talk to Father Gruba when he was writing his book, and it's you're just really you're in the presence of such love and such compassion when you're with him. It's like, I'm not Catholic and I kind of want to go to confession this afternoon. Yeah.
So the connection we have with these two guests is this guy right above Alan in this picture. This is from 1991. Alan came to our Racing Roundup show. We held it on a Monday night then. It was during Summerfest. Alan loved live music, and he would try to get back as he could. But Terry Jeffords was the 97 WLPX guy, your dad. But he also did some crazy things like building a two-way taxi, so you don't know if it's coming or going. He had a fire truck. He had his own ultralight team. He had, there was a lot of things. I got my little plastic wings I got at the record store that was a clip-on pen with the LPX logo on it.
Parachute team.
Yeah, that's it. Was it parachute? I thought it was ultralights.
Both.
Oh, yeah,
well, there you go,
both.
too. Yeah, right. So this guy, he started this show in 1985, Marilyn, after the LPX days.
Yeah.
What did he make you do that was like, I don't know if I want to do that. Okay, we're going to put you in the airplane today, Marilyn, to jump out because you worked there.
Well, yeah, and Terry, and that was kind of the beauty of, talk about luck and the right time and the right place is I was working for Terry at WLPX Radio. I wasn't an on-air person then. I had no ambition to do that, but I loved working for Terry. That's all I knew. I would have swept floors if it meant Terry Jeffords could be my boss. And I had no idea. I never knew him before then when I started working at the radio station. And so once I was working full-time and I was his traffic and continuity director, scheduling commercials basically, which is why the sales manager, Terry, was my boss. And I had no idea that he was into racing until I just casually mentioned that my boyfriend raced. And what? And so we would get to talking at the station then a lot about, because on Mondays I'd always have some stories about, Saturday at Hales and Sunday at Slinger, and Terry loved hearing about that. And Terry, then being the great marketing genius mind that he was, well, when it came that December, when that was back in the days when WIS and WLPX were owned by the same company, and WISN TV, we'd have these great Christmas parties at North Hills Country Club, huge. And and once Alan got a couple of old fashions in him, he could loosen up a little bit and actually, sit and chat with people and enjoy himself. But that was Terry's big plan is, I'm going to come to the Christmas party. I'm going to bring Alan, and we're all going to sit with Terry so Terry can talk to Alan about the possibility of putting number 97 on the side of Alan's car. And it's so, it's like, in a way, I was kind of the hero, but it was just luck, I mean, and obviously we had all thought about that, and Alan and I had talked about it a lot before we even went to that Christmas party. So it was pretty exciting going to that party, knowing what we were going to be sitting down and talking about.
So you mentioned dating your boyfriend, Alan. I need to get the record straight in my head because he won the championship at Slinger in 1977 and 1978.
Right. And we started dating in '77.
Okay.
That summer. It was.
Were you Miss Slinger already? And
yes, it was a bad. No. Oh, actually. Well, I must have been the very, very start of the racing season that I was there, and in fact, I think that's why my brother brought me along to the race so I could do the Miss Slinger Speedway contest.
Donnie raced here at Hales Corner Speedway 3 miles away.
Yes,
yeah.
And so I was there with Donnie. And it's so funny thinking back now, because, and I was telling somebody last night, you know how Alan is at the racetrack. He is so uber focused, and he's not one of those drivers who goes and stands around and chit chats with other drivers. And so here's Alan and my brother, who Donnie loved racing, but he was kind of more of a, he might win a semi-feature. That would be a good night for my brother. But so here's Alan and Donnie, who never talked before, suddenly, Alan with, how he'd stand, with his arms crossed.
Perfect.
Yeah, suddenly that night decided he's going to go and make friends with my brother. And my brother told me afterwards, this is like so obvious. It's like I said, Alan Kulwicki never give me the time of day before I brought you out here.
So Donnie Nee was the connection to Alan, just wanted to go through to talk to you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm spelling it out for myself and others that may not get the connection.
Yeah.
That had to be a lot of fun hanging out with him. We had some stories last evening. I encourage you to watch them. There were some crazy stories. Alan got crazy when he was around people he knew and trusted, John. How was it in the you got to tell this story, please. It was after hours yesterday. I want you to tell the story of you changing the radio station in the race shop.
Oh, so I was a apprentice gopher. I always called myself the one of the youngest and most inexperienced. I had been at racetracks, and now I invited myself on the team. Alan said, "Yep, come on in." So I got there early at the garage one day, and I was in college at that time, engineering student at MSOE, and got onto a classical music kick. I went from Ozzy Osbourne and Billy Squier, and just one day got into Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart. And there was a station, it was a triple digit, 10-something, 103, 106, way up there on the dial. I get to the garage. Of course, there's this always WLPX playing on the radio, just in case John Hinkle might come by.
To the general manager of the station.
Or my dad. And got there, and nobody was there, dark, fired everything up, and then just thought, I'm going to listen to a little classical music here, maybe a little more relaxing to work on the car. And dialed it in, turned it up a little bit, and had a fair amount of time to myself working on the car. Checklist, going through the checklist. Slowly, other crew members are wandering in, and they're kind of laughing, smiling that, hey, is that Tchaikovsky we're listening to? Kind of a joke. And but nobody changed the station, and now we got a good group of guys, and I thought, in my opinion, the workflow was just going great. That checklist was just getting murdered as we were picking it all up. And around the corner, finally, here comes Alan and walks in. I'm at the corner of the garage, tucked in, working on a brake caliper. He can't see me, and he walks in, and I hear a laugh, and I peek up, and there's Alan. Now, he is directing the orchestra. With his right hand, he's got the bassoons and the cellos coming up. With his left hand, he's got the reed instruments coming, and he is into it. He is just swinging, and, And then I stood up, and he turned over to smile at all the guys, and he sees me, son of Mr. WLPX, Wisconsin's best album rocker, and there I'm standing, and suddenly who changed this channel? We have an obligation to our sponsor. We must have WLPX on. What if a certain person comes here that's associated with WISN, WLX? This is unacceptable. Who changed the station? And my hand meekly, no, it was me, Alan, I'm sorry. And, since I'm the son of the sponsor, okay, John, well, all right, but don't ever do that again. We have to keep WLPX on there,
So, Marilyn, I got to ask you, when Alan got to the track, he probably sometimes forgot to eat, forgot to bring clothes, forgot to, do things that we normally pack him to get ready for.
Yes.
What did you find yourself doing? Like, your trunk had a bunch of clothes in it and food, maybe, a loaf of bread? I don't know.
I'll tell you the most important thing, and this is something that Faye Hendricks can attest to. There were two things that I carried extra because they absolutely, positively had to be in his pocket at the racetrack when he got into the car.
Okay.
One was one of those little, we call them 10-cent combs, the little black combs that you get at Walgreens.
You get them at the barber shop as you walk out.
Okay,
If you're a nice boy, I got one like twice. Yeah.
And a hanky.
And a hanky.
Yeah, it wasn't a Kleenex, it wasn't like a bandana, no. It was a white, folded, clean hanky.
In his racing uniform.
Yeah. He had to have a hanky. Well, because number one, when he got out of the car, he liked to wipe his face off, and he had to comb his hair and wipe his face off. And number two, he had I don't know if you know this, he had really bad allergies. And so he'd get depending on what time of year it was and what time of day, then, where the wind was blowing, he could get really stuffed up during a race. And so he had to be able to have a hanky so he could blow his nose during a yellow flag and, blow his nose after a race.
Gotcha.
But he just, I think part of it almost became a kind of superstition, like you got to have the hanky, you got to have the comb. So I always carried extras
Wow.
of those.
You had extras.
I had a grandma who had a lot of hankies, so I ended up with a lot of them. So I always had and it might be, those white linen. I probably have to be pretty old to even know what a hanky is, but so they often had like little flowers embroidered on them or something. But yeah, it had to be clean and folded into the size so that it fit into the pocket on the racing uniform. And in fact, speaking of racing uniforms, that summer that I was, the summer I was Miss Slinger Super Speedway when I first met Alan. That it was at the end of that year that Wayne, who ran Slinger, changed the rules, and the guys had to go from wearing T-shirts and jeans or coveralls or whatever they were wearing to race to you had to wear a racing suit. And the racing suit that I had, because I still had it packed away, that was on display at UWM last night, was that very first racing suit that he ever bought. And we laugh all the time about how cheap Alan was, but he wouldn't even have his name embroidered on it because that was like
it might cost like $5.
Yeah, it might cost $5. And in fact, and you know what? Here's another thing that I remember from that first year is I was at his. He lived at home with Jerry and Thelma, and in a bedroom that I am positive looked the same from the day they moved into that house on 96th and Morgan, and still had his sports trophies from high school, and he was actually a really good football player when he was,
Wow.
before he stayed short. But but he's a very good football player. He's very athletic.
Yeah.
He had great timing, and which I think you really have to be a great race car driver. But I was sitting on the edge of the bathtub while he was finishing getting ready, and he was blow drying his hair. And the blow dryer that he was using, I am telling you, I've never seen anything like it. I bet it was like the first blow dryer ever invented. It still had like the fabric wrapped around the cord. This thing was an antique and looked like it was like ready to short out at any second. And so I decide, I know, like for Christmas or birthday, because they, close together,
14th,
and my birthday was 2 weeks before Alan. I'm gonna get him a new blow dryer. I'm gonna get some real snazzy, racy looking, one, because that was back in the late '70s is when like cool handheld blow dryers were like
I remember.
the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had been talking about, though, during like November and December, about that he really, really needed this particular part or tool that I could get. If I wanted to get him a good Christmas and birthday present, this is what I could get
Like
him.
a torque wrench or something. Yeah.
Well, it was like something kind of expensive,
Okay.
but or I could at least put money towards that, and I don't know, that just sounded so like not fun and not a surprise. So for his birthday, I decided, no, I'm getting him a really cool blow dryer to replace that gigantic antique. It's like, I think probably weighed like 8 pounds. And so I'm all excited. I go over because we're going out the night of his birthday, and I went over to his house, and he opened it and gave it to him, and he opened it up, and he looked at me and said, I already have a hairdryer. I told you I wanted the blah, blah, blah. Like whatever the thing was. And I was so crushed. Oh my gosh, I thought he would love having that. Nope. That was a waste of money. He already had a perfectly good blow dryer that worked. Didn't need a new one. But that was so typical of him. He was so practical in that way, and saving money on absolutely everything. And like even making his to-do lists. You wouldn't write a to-do list on a fresh sheet of paper when the backside of yesterday's list was perfectly fine. It's
All
like
right.
he just,
Yeah.
and I admire that, like in hindsight now. In the moment, oh my gosh, it's a pain, but
Crazy.
but he could be such a different guy off the track, as so many people have alluded to. And I can't believe John Jeffords didn't even tell you about the racing scrambled eggs. I think
We got to hear about that.
we stayed at Jeffords' house periodically, because Alan was kind of a lightweight. It's like, he once almost trying to drive when he should not have been. And you got to remember, this is going way back before we knew, all the laws about drunk driving, because he was very much a rule follower and not a lawbreaker. But, he once almost put my Grand Am into a pole, falling asleep behind the wheel. When Alan got tired, that was it. He was toast. Somebody else. I drove that truck plenty of times home from Slinger. But anyway, so we had been I think we'd been out at a race, and we ended up staying at the Jeffords house. And Alan, and I'm sure we stayed there because Alan was in no shape to be able to go home. And I think there was a little bit left over in his bloodstream that morning because Kelly Jeffords was making us scrambled eggs, and Alan decided he was going to take over, but instead of worrying about getting the scrambled eggs nicely done, he took the spatula and he started doing the color commentary of a race, and he was making the eggs race around.
The egg yolk circulating.
And he's going into the side, and scrambled eggs go flying over the side of the pan. But he could be so silly and fun when you got him away. I mean, there was nobody who loved a good joke more than Alan, or loved telling a joke more than Alan. He just got it. The more people laughed, the more tickled with himself he would be. But
wow. Well, we celebrate Alan with you. How about a nice hand from Marilyn, me, and John Jeffords. Guys, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been really, really a fun time talking to you guys about your buddy, your pal. I mean, wow, what a great guy.
I wish I could tell all. There's a part of me that wants to keep a lot of the stories I have just private. But boy, there are, and Faye can attest, there are more than a few that I wish I could share without offending people.
Well, the park is open till 4 o'clock today. If you guys want to stick around, Marilyn's going to hold a little after the show's over. Maybe,
I think I'd be like Alan. I'd have to have a couple old fashions to
order up. Anybody? Lynch's right over here.
Some of those stories. Do you know about the workout machine? I heard Father Gruba talking about Alan
I did
working
see it, yes,
out.
yeah.
Did you ever see his very first workout machine? He invented a workout machine. Like, he built it from scratch. And Faye just reminded me of this today, where he built it sat on the floor, and he welded pipes together. But he had shock absorbers and a steering column and a steering wheel. I couldn't move the steering wheel, but that's how he worked out his arms and his shoulders. And I swear he was doing that way before any other drivers were. I mean, you think about some of the big race car drivers back in the day. Richard Petty was tall, but he wasn't a big guy. But Alan, that was just how Alan's brain worked. What can I do to be a better driver? Well, having strength is... became a key part of it. I look at all the drivers now who have workout regimens and probably travel with personal trainers. But no, he invented the first, muscle building machine for stock car drivers there in that garage on South 13th Street.
Wow, great stories. Again, thank you guys for being on. Really
Thank you,
cool.
Jim.
It was great to talk to you.
Same here, Marilyn.
I'm just glad I got through it without crying.
You did great. Again, good
Thanks,
hand.
Jim.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, John, for taking the time to join us here today. We're going to take a brief timeout to reset the stage. We have on the way, Gary Radisky, who owns that uniform behind us, the Alan Kulwicki Xerox uniform. We're going to talk to Stan Johnson and John Safran next. John owns that beautiful piece of history outside, and Stan was the one that designed that paint job in a big-time hurry. You'll find out that story next on the show.
This special Racing Roundup show is coming to you live from the Brooks Pavilion at Alan Kulwicki Park, which was dedicated as a Milwaukee County park in Alan's honor on October 12, 1993. Like many of the seminal moments during Alan's racing career and after his passing, the Racing Roundup show was live from the park dedication in 1993. In 1985, one of our first shows held in an audience setting was at Alan Kulwicki's send-off party, days before he left for North Carolina to pursue his NASCAR dreams. Since then, we have followed Alan's amazing path, and today we are reliving some amazing moments with those who knew Alan best. and we're spending time with race fans that own some of the finest collections of Allen's memorabilia. If you are in the Milwaukee area, join us today at Allen Kulwicki Park. It's a celebration of Allen Kulwicki Weekend.
I just got something really good told. Thank you, Marilyn. She said she's going to tell me some of those stories, so I get to be the one to hear it. We encourage you to go to our website, racingroundupshow.com. We got this entire show. We have last night's show. We do a show every Tuesday, and we do it with a bunch of short track racers and big-time racers across the country. We're so pleased to be joined by these two gentlemen. They've got a story to tell. Let's welcome in John Saffer, who's now the patron of Allen Kulwicki's Racing because he owns Chassis 007. Thank you, John, for being on the program and bringing the car again.
Thank you for having me, and thank all of you for being here and your interest and gratitude on the car.
Stan Johnson's with us as well. Stan, you're between John and I sitting here, but you are very much in the middle of what Allen did as a race driver when it came to the appearance of his race cars. Tell us how that became a friendship way back in those red 97 LPX days.
Well, when Allen was just getting into racing, a friend of mine, Greg Krieger from our high school hot rod club, built his first chassis on the floor of his garage.
Okay.
And Greg and I were friends. I went over and met Allen there. And he was very much at the local level. He had would have a restaurant or a bar as a sponsor. And I helped sponsor his car at Slinger in the early days. And we became close friends. And I could feel he was an engineering graduate like myself. And I could see, and I was racing then myself, and still am, and I could see a lot of potential. He had the right attitude and seriousness and so on that I admired. So I said, I'll do what I can to help him. He can go fast and build a car, but he has no idea how to sell a sponsorship or national level work. So I began doing some sketching of potential sponsors and so on. And he called me one day and said, Xerox is looking to sponsor a car. And my pictures, those pictures of Xerox car and the Hooters car over there are my original sketches. He took the copies. And there's some collateral material there that I took along.
Can you bring the drawings over? We'll put them on the
Sure.
so people can see them at home too. Thank you.
No, the big framed ones, right there.
The big framed ones. Thank you. My brother Ron is now Vanna White all of a sudden. He's wearing a shirt he's never worn before or will again. He brought it out of the box today, the Hooters t-shirt. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll hold it. So Stan, tell us about these. You don't need to see me.
No, these are my original sketches. I sent Alan a copy to take to the potential sponsor. So this Xerox we had a little bit of time on and did a nice front rear drawing. I went to a hardware store or something, got a bottle or a package of Xerox, got the label off of that, and that was how I could get an accurate depiction of what the car would look like. And the whole idea here is that he would go to Xerox, show him this, and say, you sponsor me and the car, and this is what you get. You get this car with the Xerox name on the front and the back and the top. To hundreds of millions of people will see this over a season of racing. And then I had the Xerox, or the Allen Kulwicki newspaper that I made up showing all the victories. It's over on my table there. And some other material selling him and also selling stock car racing because they were getting into racing. Well, he left with all this material, presented it, called me and said, Stan, we're in. We've got Xerox. And that took us from supper clubs and Stan Johnson sponsorships to national level, semi-truck. I did some semi-truck drawings and so on. And I kept helping him on marketing and how to apply the logo at that time. Then when he called again and he said, Stan, Xerox is getting out of racing. And that was a downer because that was his life at that point. It was a Thursday afternoon. He called me from the car and he said, Stan, we have a problem. And I thought, well, I think since I'm on the phone, I'm the other half of we. He said, I have an appointment at Hooters. This was Thursday. On Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia, with Mr. Brooks, who's the CEO. He said, I heard they're into racing now. He said, what are we going to do by Saturday? I said, well, I guess we are going to stay up overnight, come up with a new design for the Hooters logo machine, and then we will send it overnight to the Hooters CEO's desk. So, which I did, and this is the drawing, the original. I sent him a copy, sent it overnight, FedEx or something, to Atlanta. And when he got to Atlanta and had this appointment with Mr. Brooks, when Alan opened the package I sent, that was the first time he saw it. He opened it up and said, well, here, we're ready to go for our new sponsorship.
So he's handing these out as he sees them for the first time to the people who are going to sponsor his race.
Yeah, and he's reading this stuff like he knew what it was, but he never saw it before. And shortly thereafter, again, he called and said, Stan, Hooters bought the program. He said, we're in with Hooters. And I said, that's why I did that stuff, because I think I was betting on a sure thing. And I don't bet on anything but sure things. And the rest was practically history. He'd stop off at our office and see my sons who are here, and we update his programs and what he could do to keep operating at this, for him, a dream level. This was his goal. And his life was like a movie. Started out at a dusty dirt track with a couple of friends in some place in Wisconsin, and then one, as you see on the newspaper, all the time, and when he was going to move to, and this is history, but I was there, when he was going to make the big move to the south, leaving Milwaukee, he had all of his stuff behind his pickup truck in a trailer. And this was his life, the Slinger, the Columbus Speedway. Everything was in that truck. And he called me and said, and I could hear his voice was cracking up. He said, Stan, I don't know what to do. I said, well, what's the matter? He said, the truck's on fire. I thought, oh my God, this is movie set stuff. You'd see, if you saw it in the movie, you'd say they're making it up, but it wasn't. So it damaged the truck, but not the trailer full of his stuff. So he had a friend borrow him, loan him a truck to haul his stuff down south, and then whatever was damaged in the presentation stuff, I replaced with him. And I was at the other picture that's in my area over there is a picture he and I had Charlotte for the 400, and as you see in that picture, he was on the pole, okay, and I'm sitting there, standing in front of the car on the pole, and I think it was 1988, okay. And I could, at that time, times are so different that NASCAR would allow me to walk up on the track with the cars lined up for the race and stand in front of the pole car. And then he was, as you see in that picture, that relaxed before the race. But everybody should be relaxed before the race, or you'll get too tense,
He has his arm around your neck, didn't he?
Yeah, he was wrestling with me. Aren't you, scared or worried? Well, no, not at all. We're buddies. Thanks for everything, and
Yeah, that's great.
And it's the pole. So how much pressure would you have with 41 cars behind you
Yep.
on the pole at one of the biggest races in the circuit. And he's just saying, we're having fun, And but you have to do that. As I said, I've raced all my life, and you can't get too tense about it.
No.
You've got to accept it for what it is, and if you can't take the pressure, get on the team, not behind the wheel, because
And Johnny O, you've done a lot of this. You've known Stan for a long time. How did you guys get a relationship going before you even bought that 007 sitting outside?
My dad.
Really?
Right, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they were friends, and
his dad and I were very close
Yeah.
friends. We were about the same age,
yeah.
and we'd go everywhere to races and
Yeah.
car auctions.
Yeah.
That was your big time fun? So Stan Johnson reminded me that Sean Heckman and Ryan Eversley did a 4-part podcast. Actually, they released it now. It's on YouTube. In 2018, I think it was released right before Alan was officially voted into the Hall of Fame. And your session was with them. You gave me a note here. You had a session with those guys talking about Alan on April 1st, 2018.
On April 1st.
Yeah.
I wrote out this note
Yeah.
to remind me.
Yep.
And Dinner with Racers
Yep.
has a long podcast. So any of you at any time can look up Dinner with Racers and look up Kulwicki. And those two fellows travel around the country doing lunch or dinner with a racer and interviewing and podcasting them, I think, forever. So I did one with them here at my shop in Brookfield, all on Alan's career. But they've interviewed everybody in racing, and it's really an interesting program, and it's free, and it's on the internet, just Dinner with Races.
Yeah, I had the good fortune of being on their show. I got them in contact with some people. Doug Mayer, they had lunch with him at Katarina's on Beloit Road. It's been a lot of fun having you on, Stan. John, we're keeping you for the next segment because we got somebody to talk to about Chassis 007 when it raced and won those 2 races in 1992. I want to say it for Stan Johnson for joining us here today. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Danny Cameron, who is a mechanic and spotter for Allen in his championship season. We're going to take a little break to get these guys switched out here, and then we're going to bring in John Safra, who now owns that 007 chassis. That's the number of the chassis, if you didn't figure that out. You want to stay right here? We can do that. It's our show. It's our time. He's on now? Okay. Why don't we take a... Oh, there's Danny. Okay, cool. Today we're going to stay right here. This is live show right here in the middle of it all. So, we are not going to take a little break. We're going to stay right here because we've got to bring in our next guest. And boy, what a treat he was to talk to for well over an hour this week to say, can you be on our show? We want to talk about Alan on April 1st. And he said, absolutely. Let's welcome in the 1992 NASCAR Cup Series champion, spotter, and full-time member of Alan Kulwicki's team, Danny Cameron. Danny, how are you?
I'm doing.
We can hear a little bit of you. Can you turn up your... Can you hear us now, Dan?
I'm working on it.
Okay. All right. So,
Hang on.
you got it. So we're sitting down with John Safra, who bought this car, Alan Kulwicki's chassis number 007. He bought it at auction in Scottsdale, Arizona in 2017, January, right?
Yes.
So Johnny wanted to go racing with it, and he raced it. He wanted to race a car, and it was the car available to race because you already had a Roush Ford Taurus you raced.
Yes.
And then this one came up for auction, and you bought it. And what a whirlwind it's been, hasn't it?
In a hometown car.
Yeah.
And I had always admired Alan, and unfortunately never got to meet him. But I got to know a lot about him through you and Terry and the Legend Car deal and everything. And
you got to be part of that. And
Yeah.
Danny Cameron lived it. Danny, you were kind enough to tell me about this specific race car. You said of all the cars we could race in Alan's shop, whether it be from the time you were there at the beginning of '89 season on through, this car was special that we get to see today. And Johnny's going to race it again on the road course. I think he's nuts. Tell us more about why this car was so special to you guys.
Well, we used it a lot. We took it everywhere we could. It was our favorite car. It was Alan's favorite car. We went racing. I believe it was the first brand new car that we built for the '89 season, to be the end of the '80s. I believe the car that almost won the Daytona 500 1989.
And this car was the one that won both Pocono and Bristol in 1992. That's quite a. Some teams have just chassis for specific racetracks, but that one certainly seemed to be very versatile for these guys. Danny also, as part of his team, he started out as a volunteer, and as he got his way into working on the car, part of it was part of making sure the car looked good on the inside and the outside.
Roundup.net.
There you go. That's where we are. So, Danny, when you got a chance to start wiping down that car, it became more than a job. It became something that helped the team in a number of ways. How long did it take cleaning out race cars on weekends so Alan had it the way he wanted it?
Well, time management was everything with Alan. If there was ever a secret, they talk about how thrifty he was, but he was thrifty with time. So we would go out to practice. That was the most important thing. In a 45-minute practice, how many times can we cycle the car? How many times can we make a change, go back out, evaluate it, bring it back in, make another change, go out, and evaluate it? Where other teams might do it 2 or 3 times, we would do it 5 or 6 times because we had our engineer, driver, crew chief, everything driving the car. He already knew what he wanted before he got off the racetrack. We had the shocks, the springs, the changes, all prepared, tools laid out. He'd pull in, car went in the air, changes made, back on the ground, out to evaluate, come back in, make another change, out to evaluate, while other drivers still had the crew chief sticking their head through the window. So how many times can you cycle the car in a practice session? That was really the secret.
But it also came down to execution after the fact. I know at that time you guys had different oils you ran for qualifying, and then you changed a lot of things for the race. So there was probably 2 agendas there. How involved were you? Getting back to that car cleaning story, I really want to get into that because there was a way you went about it. He didn't like to have anything not just so. He wanted to have it just right. And you learned, I think from Paul Andrews, you told me that there was a reason behind what you did was important to what Alan wanted in that race car. Tell us more about that, please.
Well, I think you're talking about race morning. Everybody had their specific job on the race morning. Cars basically prepared, everything just went over. And because originally I started part-time, I was really good at cleaning the car. So not only would I clean the outside of the car, the underneath of the car, but I would clean the inside of the car. Paul had me in there, wanted absolutely spotless, inside the windows, in the back, down in the corners. And I used to ask Paul, why is this important to get the inside of the car clean? He says, because psychologically, when Alan gets in that car and he sees how clean it is, and he thinks, man, if they spent that much time cleaning the inside of the car, the rest of the car must be pretty good. It just helped him with his mindset.
And you were part of that mindset as well. I would like to talk 2 more topics at least to share with the audience. How did you become Alan Kulwicki's spotter? You're a shop guy. I know Tom Roberts was spotting for Alan who won the Atlanta race, the November '88 race in Phoenix. Tom was up on Rattlesnake Hill. But then you were a crew member, and I'd love for you to tell us the story of how you became Alan's spotter for the majority of the rest of the time you were there.
Well, actually, it started when I was part-time. We're at Watkins Glen, which was near where I lived, and I'm at the track, and it's race morning, and I'm walking through the pits, and Alan come up behind me, walking faster than me with a radio and a headset, never even looked at me, just handed me the radio and the headset and says, "You're spotting today." And I stopped, I'm stunned, and I run back up behind him, and I'm like, "No, I'm not. Are you kidding? No, there's no way I'm spotting today. That'll be the end of my very short career." He says, "You're spotting today." So I did. I went out there, and I was in the S's, and good thing was, I'd never had a radio on before. I'd never had a scanner on. I didn't have any bad habits. I never heard anybody do it before. So that was a good thing. And we had a pretty good day. Right off the bat, somebody come through the S's and knocked some gravel on the outside of the second S turn there. And so I pushed a button. I said, "Hey, there's some gravel X turn, stay to the inside." Next thing you know, he comes down the hill, comes up the hill, stays to the inside, shoots down the backstretch, and unbelievably, he pushes the button and says, "Good job, Danny. Keep it up." Wow, that was it. I was sold.
You also got a chance to do some, I believe you told me your morning routine with Alan as you became the regular spotter was to go over some talk points about the race, or maybe, hey, this is what's going to happen, or this is what happened last time we raced here. Those kind of nuances. You kind of just had a little time with him. But when it came to November 15th, Sunday morning at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the Hooters 500, you said you didn't have that time. What did you do instead of spending those moments with Alan, because he was torn in all these different places?
Well, you're exactly right. And we didn't have our, what I used to call our prayer meeting. So I went in the trailer, went back into his little private space there, and I saw an envelope, and so I grabbed it and I wrote him a note. I said, "Hey, pal, I know this is the biggest day of your life, but remember, it's the biggest day of our life too. So be cool. And the only way NASCAR can get you today is speeding on pit road." And I wrote in big letters, "Watch your speed." And I folded it up, laid it on his little itty-bitty driving suit, and, the rest is history. So we're in victory lane. He's holding up the trophy. I got the $1 million check. Everybody's taking pictures, a lot of noise. And I hear somebody shouting my name. And I'm like, who could be shouting my name? And I'm looking around, and I realized it was Alan. And he's bending over, and he's frustrated because I didn't hear him. And I go, what? He pats his pocket. He goes, "I got the note." How special is that?
And I did, after our conversation, go back and watch. If you watch Alan as he climbs out of his car, after he combs his hair, after Benny Parsons makes fun of him, as he's doing that, Alan had taken one thing in one hand and one in the other and put one in his left pocket. And as he climbed out, he put, I believe, your note in his right pocket as he climbed out of that car. He wanted to keep that with him still as he was awarded his championship that afternoon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. I watched that climbing out of the car thing 100 times over 30 years, and it wasn't until a year ago I noticed that you could actually see him slip the note in his pocket.
That is cool, Danny. I know you got a chance to celebrate with your team members at Alan's induction. Your induction, really, February 1st, 2019. I was in the audience with you at the NASCAR Hall of Fame induction. That had to bring back a lot of fun memories as well, and a lot of times to celebrate. And I actually want to show you, I still have my little helmet. I was at Hooters that night after the banquet. Tom Roberts invited me and some others to come to Hooters to have a post-banquet party at the Hall of Fame. And I got as many guys to sign it as I could, including you, Danny. So you're part of my helmet, part of my memories there. How much fun was it for you that night to hang out with those guys again?
Yeah, that was super special, kind of surreal. I can't tell you how emotional it was for all of us. I was honored to be there. I still don't know why we aren't all up there, but that's fine. We had 3 of our best representatives, and they did a good job and honored Alan, and that was super special, trust me.
It was great to see you guys celebrate that one more time, and it's been our pleasure to have you on today. How about I say it for Danny Cameron? Danny, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Great storyteller, and man, you were part of history, and we're so glad to help celebrate it with you again here this weekend. Johnny, thank you for bringing the car. Where are you going to race that thing next?
Road America in July, vintage races.
You've already got one win, and I didn't realize this, but we were all worried about the weather today, right? You brought that car here in the snow. Last night you said, "Jim, I brought snow tires on it."
Yeah.
And I calmed Mark Goodman down, who's organizing this whole thing, and Mark's like, "I don't know if he's going to bring the car. He's going to bring the car." I'm like, "Mark, I don't know," but I talked to Johnny, and you actually won a race at Road America already in that car.
I did.
And it was in the wet.
I did.
So I'm thinking, well, what's the little weather going to happen? Because you got a whole lot more cleaning after you race the thing in the wet.
Yeah. My little Makita blow dryer or blower and zip tied to the roll cage and nice defroster.
Wow.
Worked well.
Wow. Hey, and thanks for being, again, I called you a patron. I will say it again, not only because of your passion for racing, but also now you've got Mike Dowd's collection and 2 other guys that had a lot of Alan Kulwicki material and collections that you now have harboring as part of what you do to honor Alan's legacy. So as you continue to race that car, you continue to represent all of us in saying, hey, that was pretty cool. Tell me an Alan story. Or you now have to listen to everybody's Alan story when they show up, right?
I love it. I truly love it. And driving the car is unbelievably special.
Well, great to have you here and sharing it with us again. Thank you, John.
Yep, thank you.
I'm saying for
Thank you
Johnny
all.
Safro. Thank you, John.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for coming down. We're going to take a little break, reset things here. We're live at Alan Kulwicki Park this afternoon. It's a Saturday to celebrate. Come on down and join us. The party goes till 4. I don't know when our show ends. I had a time in mind, but we'll see. We're keeping rolling. We got great guests lined up. Stick around.
Welcome once again to a special presentation of the Racing Roundup Show, live from Alan Kulwicki Park. The Racing Roundup Show is now in its 39th season of covering the Wisconsin racing scene and the world of motorsports. Our regular Tuesday night shows fire up this Tuesday, April 4th at 6 p.m. Central Time, live from Paulie's Pub and Eatery just outside Turn 1 of the Milwaukee Mile. Like our show on Facebook and watch any of our shows live or at your convenience online at racingroundupshow.com, including last night's show held in the Kulwicki Garage at the UW-Milwaukee Engineering Building. Thanks for joining us for the celebration of Alan Kulwicki Weekend.
Put that on. Welcome back to the Racing Roundup Show. We're hanging out with you, and I know by looking at the Alan Kulwicki fans page on Facebook, there's a lot of interest in Alan Kulwicki material, Alan Kulwicki souvenirs. Alan Kulwicki, I've got this. My brother Joe gave me. I didn't realize, but these are pretty rare. I bought one when they first came out. Alan Kulwicki's racing shop sign. I think this was a park fundraiser as well. This is Mark Goodman's Quincy's car. We've got all sorts of cool stuff, kind of representing what we think is cool. But Gary Radisky, who was a crew member when I met him first with Dennis Latman. We call him Goodyear Gary because he worked at Goodyear. And
Still do.
Yeah, great. Goodyear Gary was always around, but I had no idea your affinity and now your collection has grown quite a bit with Alan Kulwicki stuff, including that really cool Xerox uniform. Congrats on getting that and having the time and ability to bring it tonight.
The piece became available in September of last year. A collector in Toronto had it. He was a Formula One guy. And apparently he picked it up in 93 or 94 somewhere. I called him. He sounded legit. You know how when you talk to people on the phone, you get the feeling that, well, maybe he's pulling your leg or this is a scam. And I asked him as many questions as I could, and he seemed to answer them all. And he's got a certificate of authenticity, so I took a chance and I bought it. And depending upon who you listen to, Alan might have had 4 of those.
I would say that's probably an accurate number, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, you've got a picture up there where his name is embroidered in black.
Okay.
This one's red. And then I don't think the one at UWM, I don't know what color that one is, but
I took a picture last night
the
of it.
Winston patch is on the other side.
Yep, and there's a bush
I don't know,
patch on the waistband, too.
Yeah, I don't know if he had different uniforms or what, but before I bought this, I was looking for internet pictures on that suit.
Yep.
Okay? And that Topps card there, the only thing you can't see is the patch that's here. But there's a hole here where you might have had, Sharpies or something, but if somebody was going to phone it up, I mean, why would they do Alan Kulwicki? Yeah. Wouldn't you do an Earnhardt or something like that? So, I took a chance. I bought it. And I just smile every time I look at it. Those days with Dennis and following Alan, they were just
we got to work
best 15 years of my life.
You got to work with Matt Kenseth and Robbie Reiser, too.
Year and a half, yeah. I was with him when we beat Tony Stewart.
That big win, the huge win at Rockingham.
Right.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the season, Robbie was able to afford full-time people. I was a part-timer. I'd fly in on Friday, do the race on Saturday, go home on Sunday. And obviously, I was in my 40s. I couldn't be down there to practice pit stops. So once he won and attracted more money and more sponsorship, I got released.
Okay.
And then I went and worked. If you show up at events, everybody doesn't have a full crew.
Yeah.
Okay? So I worked on the Dr. Pepper car for a little while. I would glue the lug nuts up, Joe Washington didn't want to replace the lug nuts, how they get the burr on them. So I'm gluing these things up. I go to Joe and I said, we got to get lug nuts. He's not just glue them up. I said, they're going to get stuck in the gun. First stop, yeah. You know, instead of 20 seconds, it turns into 40, so I left there.
Okay.
I had a chance to jack for Dave Marcus.
Cool.
Last race in Atlanta in 98. He didn't make the race, and I'm glad he didn't because I could not have handled it.
Cup race and all.
Oh, that car was so much heavier than Dennis's. I mean, and the man gave me a $100 check to help me get home, and
Wow.
you know, that was the last physical involvement I had with pitting a car or racing per se.
Well, now you're going you went in the piggyback again and got some more money. This, I don't know if you can see it at all, but this is Gary's latest collection piece. It is the right side of the Hooters Ford in red letters, an all red number, no orange on the car. You just got this side panel. What's the story behind that one?
Well, 4th race of the year, he picks up Hooters,
Yep.
right? And
For one race. Yeah, at the
Right.
time. Then it
But-
became a couple more.
For the 4 races after that, Darlington and 3 short tracks, he's running red numbers, red letters. He doesn't go brown and yellow until Talladega,
Yep.
okay? So if you look at that piece, there are donuts on there, and 3 of those 4 races were short tracks. I don't know how many cars he used in that 4-race stretch, but that's a right side.
Yep.
I don't know if that could be a 1 of 4 or a 1 of 1. Do you follow me?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, how many red, whites sides are out there?
Yeah.
I had never seen one.
now
Now
it's yours.
this belongs to a gentleman in Michigan.
Okay.
Okay. He worked part-time for Allen. He was a welder by trade. Okay. He volunteered to sweep the floor, empty the garbage, whatever. Okay. Well, after that initial apprenticeship ended, I don't know if the gentleman from Michigan left or Allen didn't need him. Okay. He said on his final day, Allen, a crew member, walked out to the dumpster, pulled that piece out, and gave it to him and said, hey, thanks.
Wow.
And it's been up in his barn for 31 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I was able to find the hood that he wrecked at Pocono in 1990, the Xerox hood.
Okay.
So,
You got you got that coming in the inventory too?
yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Okay.
But these things are pretty unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we all got die casts, we all got this, we all got that, but you know, when that special stuff comes up, that one-of-a-kind type stuff, you know, like a Hank Aaron home run bat or something,
Yeah.
or jersey, you know,
Yep.
I just grabbed it.
Thank
You
you.
know what I mean? And it's
It's in the right place. Yeah.
and it's just fun, and you know, the only interaction I ever had with him, I was down at Speed Weeks, okay?
Yep.
I would go down there every year, and
Was it Ken Squire had a show like in the mall or a
he did.
hotel?
He
Yep.
had the big Holiday Inn on A1A. Okay, it's Tuesday night. There's 3 guys there. Childress is there, Allen's there, and I forget the 3rd guy. Okay. Well, I'm in the audience. They go to a commercial break. Okay. I stand up. The guy calls on me. So what can I do for you? And I said, Allen, Gary Radisky, I'm with Dennis Lampman. And he gives you that kind of nod. I said, I got to admit, I was just a casual fan of yours. We're both from Milwaukee. But after I saw how you conducted yourself at the rally at Greenfield High School, I am your #1 fan for life. And crowd claps, right? So he's leaving at the end of the show, all right? He's 2 or 3 deep, and I had bought a 8x10 Hooters, so I just kind of hold it up like that. He reaches over about 2 heads, signs it, gives it back to me.
Ah, cool. Done deal.
That's really the only interaction I ever had with him, other than getting some autographs, and he would stop you like that, you know, and he'd walk over, but yeah, just you admire everything you did, and
Yeah.
grabbing these pieces
Well, thanks for sharing with us.
I smile every time I look at them.
They're in the right place. They're in the right place, Gary.
It was just a thrill.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for bringing the suit down, too. That's cool.
Well, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
it's
having me.
It's not available, not for sale. Gary's never going to get rid of it, so don't even ask him. But it's great to have Gary and other super fans, small, big, large, huge. All they have, maybe have one collector card. It's all about celebrating Alan Kulwicki this weekend. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Very much. We're going to stay right here because we have a gentleman patiently waiting for us. He was Alan's PR guy. He wrote the first story about Alan that appeared about racing in the All-American 400 when he was the PR guy for the All-Pro Series at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway way back in the day, and they were friends since. And he's our friend and the harborer of the Kulwicki Driver Development Program. Let's welcome in Tom Roberts to the show. How you doing, TR?
I'm doing just fantastic, Jim. I'm just hoping that the video quality is good. This is, we're so high tech these days. When you told me that we were going to do this via my iPhone, I said, well, we'll give it a try anyhow. But it's so awesome to be able to. I logged on a little bit early there, and to be able to hear Danny Cameron, and also to see Johnny there. Oh man, we owe so much. Thank you, Johnny, for allowing us to borrow that special car. It was very much appreciated, not only by us, but all of the visitors to the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte. And Johnny, take that thing out there and put her in victory lane.
He's smiling really big over here.
I know that's what you're wanting to do. Yeah, that's true. But big shout out to him. He was part of history there, and I remember when he was there when it was on display, and we were all doing the little special tour there that Johnny had us autograph the hood inside the trunk deck. Mm-hmm. So that's a special hot rod that he has there. That's for sure.
Yeah, you guys are all in your Sunday clothes, and one by one, the trunk opened, and you guys climbed over the railing and signed that back of that trunk, and it's another way to celebrate.
Huh? Yeah, and I know somebody else who was there, and that was you.
Oh.
And Jim, I have to say this, that through all the years, your help in keeping his memory alive, keeping Alan's memory alive, we treasure that. Value your friendship and your assistance through the years has just been, remarkable. So you really deserve to be there in Charlotte for all of the festivities, and we certainly were happy to have you there.
Well, I was so honored to be there with my brother John, who actually went to work at Allen's Engine Shop in 1995 when Jeff Bodine bought it. And John is still working in NASCAR. He's got 100 and I don't know how many victories at Hendrick Motorsports. He's been there since 2001. He's won now, I think, 8 or 9 championships with that team. 9 championships now with Kyle Larson's championship. Your life interspersed with Rusty Wallace and Alan and the short track days. It was so wonderful to know you then from the Miller stuff. We had Miller Brewing Company based here in Milwaukee. You got to be part of what we got to be enjoy with Bruce Mueller and Tom Kleiber and all those guys. And then Alan was, your other project, which we all are like, man, this is the best thing ever. It had to be so much fun, as much work as you put into this, to work for Rusty, and then Alan would have you like, hey, can you do this for me? When you're done doing Rusty stuff, could you add 5 minutes for me? It had to be such a wonderful time to experience all that with him.
It was quite remarkable. And, I often say, and I've been doing quite a few interviews recently, of course, it being the 30th anniversary. But it was a great time to be in racing for sure. But I think that my situation was so unique in that the competition out there in between drivers and teams, it would not allow, it certainly wouldn't allow today for one person to be part of guys' careers like I was blessed to be able to do. But so much of that falls back into to their roots, where they came from, and racing against each other in the Midwest and ASA series. They gained tremendous respect, and it became camaraderie And sure, there was always the competition on the racetrack, but I think that they were all in. They all were in like a fraternity where they got satisfaction from seeing each other succeed, and they were determined to help each other. I don't know how many times that I've reiterated the fact that there's Rusty. Rusty was responsible for bringing Alan's sponsor. He had Alugard, which was part of BASF, and then they decided they wanted to do their own antifreeze brand, thus Xerox. So Rusty was directly responsible for hooking those guys up. And of course, everyone knows that Paul Andrews had worked with Rusty back in the short track days, and that's where Paul comes along to be Alan's crew chief. I shake my head sometimes for all the experiences that I was blessed to witness. I mean, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows there that weekend in Bristol, and I've had a great career and blessed to be doing what I'm doing now with the Kulwicki Driver Development Program, and I think racing in general is blessed by our program, and the fact that it has 30 years later helped carry on the memory of Alan. I was back and forth earlier today with Ty Majeski, our inaugural champion back in 2015, and there's a story that's floating around out there that NBC Sports did with Ty, and definitely wanted to make sure that he saw that, and he shared it. If you get a chance, read that.
Okay.
So many people were wanting, they reach out to me and they want to more or less go back and relive the days leading in Bristol leading up to the tragedy, which I don't mind. I don't mind doing that. But when I was chatting with Mike Embry, he was looking for an angle, a story.
Okay.
And it just came up. I said, let's talk about my program, our program, and let's look at the champion. And it was like an educational process for him to learn more about our program and to learn, yes, that, Ty was our inaugural champion. And me, to this day, he still epitomizes, what Alan stood for. It's this many generations later, and he is, he's so proud to be our inaugural champion, and their backgrounds are so similar, and I see the drive and the determination in Ty that I did in Alan.
For
Man,
sure.
I just get so wordy and just ramble on, so I'm just going to let you ask questions.
I've been accused of that my whole life, Tom. I'm telling you, I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and if you didn't have the first quick quip, you were not funny. So I'm trying my hardest to slow down just to kind of get into Guntersville, Alabama, hang out with you this afternoon for a little bit and just enjoy the day. I do want to bring up one happy moment. I was actually in the audience, in the stands at both occasions when Alan went the Polish victory lap way. And at Atlanta 92, I was in row 13, I want to say, right past start finish, right where he put that car in fourth gear. He did the Y turn. I'll never forget the sound of that. I also was there in Phoenix with 400 other race fans in Wisconsin in November when he won in Phoenix. And I learned that you were spotting for him that day, but you weren't in the spotter stand. You went to the Rattlesnake Hilltop to watch him do his race.
Well, this was before the luxuries and everything that Danny Cameron was able to enjoy, where there was really a designated, organized, spotting area with actual NASCAR representation there. This, there was a designated spot, but it was like the upper row of the regular grandstand underneath the press box there. So I was going to play it, they made the offer. That's what it was, and not everybody even utilized spot. A lot of times, people would just try to stand on the truck in the infield and try to do stuff. But I went up, I took a view. Thank goodness it was early enough that I got up to that location, and the pre-race activities had started. Well, people started standing up, and I said, "Whoa, this isn't going to get it." That's the last thing I want to do is be on the radio and tell Alan, "I'm sorry, I can't see." So I wound up at the time I was really big into to running. I still exercise a lot now, but I walk instead of run. So anyhow, I ran to what I thought was going to be a extremely good vantage point up on, as they call it, Rattlesnake Hill, about halfway up, and it wasn't the idea scenario from the standpoint of being in the center of the track and looking out. But it was so elevated that it was like I was on top of the track. You probably have been up
halfway
up to the top.
Halfway.
Of that
I've
thing.
got to go to the top.
But it was great. It was a great vantage point, and at the time I carried a scanner to listen to the other teams and listen to NASCAR. And of course, Alan's team radio. So it worked, and he worked, and history was made there that day.
I listened to the entire race on his channel. You guys were just in concert, and he was, he when he saw the puff of smoke out of Ricky Rudd's car, things changed. It got quiet, I want to say. And as the laps wound down and as the checkered flag fell, he was about to lap Rusty Wallace. Didn't get by him. Maybe he laid off a little bit, but he won his first race. And then he went to the bottom of turn 3 in the apron and slowed down. Take us from that moment, the conversation you had that now is cemented history as Alan's Polish victory lap origins.
Well, there's all kinds of a lot of reasoning, a lot of thinking, and everything went into that. From his standpoint, he had gotten close to victory several times, and he wanted to do something, that was different. I think a lot of it maybe had come from conversation he had with Humpy Wheeler when he first moved south, and that I'll never forget after his conversation. It was like the thing Alan told me that Humpy's theme was "Be spectacular," and that sort of became our little slogan is be spectacular. And when he would have some success, through the years, I utilized that term quite a bit. But after he won, what was cool was to be able to be listening into the 26 car that day and to understand they were overheating, and to be able to relay that information to Alan that something's going to happen, something's got to happen here. So I think that maybe that made him a little bit more confident, but at the same time maybe took care of his stuff a little bit better. But anyhow, he didn't quite put a lap on Rusty, and he takes the checkered flag, comes down, and I just immediately said, Fallon, do your lap. And I really didn't know when he said, reverse lap, the little discussion that we had. I thought he was going to go in reverse. I did. And then, later on, I gave that idea to Kurt Busch, who wound up actually doing that, putting the car in transmission in reverse and doing it. But anyhow, when he whipped it around and started going, in the opposite direction.
But didn't he ask you permission? Didn't he ask you permission, Tom? Did he say, "Can I go? Can I go yet? Can I go now? Is it okay?" I want to remember that like it was yesterday. He was kind of asking you, "Am I good?"
It was like, he didn't ask for any kind of permission. And when he did it, I honestly think that there was there was quite a bit of apprehension on his part because he didn't know how it would be accepted by the NASCAR officials. That's the last thing. That's the last thing that he would want is for him to encounter negativity after posting his first win. But when I saw him whip it around, and you could tell, I mean, he was pretty much like, I remember a couple of times maybe laughing or wow or congratulating the guys on the team radio, but the visual is something that I will always remember. Now, I didn't see that much now. I saw it when he whipped it around in turn 4, and he wound up turn 3, and then about when he started heading down the back stretch going in the wrong direction, that's when I figured it was time for me to hightail it back inside and go to Victory Lane and continue my duties down there. And as it would turn out, there was a gate there in turn 4 coming off the hill. I was able to cross. I was able to get down. I actually came into Victory Lane as Dr. Punch was starting his interview with Alan.
You ran down there, man. That was a short turn.
I was.
Yeah.
It was. Yes. It was. I was definitely Speedy Gonzalez. That was. I never was on the track team, but I guarantee you the coach would have signed me up after that performance.
TR, we had such a wonderful time over the years. Thank you. You're a professional PR guy. You still hold the bar. You are still the standard in NASCAR, if you ask me, or any form of sports. And your calling and your acceptance of Thelma's idea, hey, why don't we do this? I talked to Thumper last night, who's on the committee of KDDP. He said it was kind of an idea to maybe give some money to some of these short track guys. And my goodness, we are all thankful. Drivers from Nova Scotia on down to Florida, all over to the West Coast. Dylan Zampa, last year's champ, is from California and making things work there. Thank you. Thank you. And we talked to two of those young men that are in the a group of 15 finalists last night. Riley Stenjum and Levon Vandergeest stopped by our show with Thumper, so that was special as well. So thanks for illuminating that and keeping that going as well.
Let me just add that our voting board members really have their work cut out for them this time around, because we have 15 fantastic semifinalists. Of course, as you mentioned, Riley and Levon from the great state of Wisconsin, and actually representation from across the nation this time. 10 states were represented, so they have their work cut out for them. We had a conference call, a Zoom call yesterday, and the jury is still out. They are still watching videos over the weekend and looking back at applications. Moving forward, we hope to be in a position to make our announcement on the 11th or 12th of April with our battle for the Kulwicki Cup starting on the 14th this year.
It's going to be great. Going to be fun to watch, and we hope that if one of those Wisconsin drivers are selected, we'll have a third member of the ultimate club of Kulwicki Cup champions, as Alex Prunty and Ty Majeski still represent our state in that. It's going to take a lot of effort, and we talked to Luke Fenhaus last night as well, and he's still at the food banks in Mooresville, North Carolina, as part of that cause-related activity that was part of becoming a KDDP driver. So, TR, thanks again. We appreciate you spending time, especially on this day, with us here in the Brooks Pavilion at Allen Kulwicki Park. Thank you.
Jim, it's always a pleasure to do anything with you, buddy. I always, treasure, like I said, treasure our friendship, and certainly appreciate everything that you do, to keep Alan's memory alive and push those young Midwestern short trackers into being superstars. You're
Absolutely
great at it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. How about I say for Tom Roberts, TRPR on the show today. Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it. We're going to take a short break. We're coming back. I'm switching up, guys. I'm calling an audible. We're going to take that theme that Tom Roberts just left us with. We're going to talk to a short track racer that's racing in Wisconsin, and he's going to be telling us about how much fun he has driving his dirt modified. He'll be racing at Wilmot Raceway this year. He's his car owner is Gary Borer from Central Services. His son-in-law is Bart Siebert. We'll talk to those guys next. Get a glimpse on what we do on our show and talk to them about how much fun we have supporting and promoting short track racers just like Allen Kulwicki. We'll be right back.
You are watching a special presentation of the Racing Roundup Show live from Allen Kulwicki Park in Greenfield. Allen attended Pius High School in West Allis and graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from UW Milwaukee. In the 75-year history of NASCAR, Allen stands alone as the only driver with a college degree to earn the NASCAR Cup Series title. Like our show on Facebook, watch our Tuesday night shows live and at your convenience online at racingroundupshow.com. Today, we're hanging out with Allen's friends, crew guys, and fans. It's a celebration of Allen Kulwicki Weekend.
Yes, it is. This is awesome. So these cars represent our next guest. This is Bart Sievert's Modified. How cool is that? We're going to give these away thanks to Gary Bohr, who's having a seat with us here. So the story goes, our racing show started in 1985. We put it in front of a live audience, starting with Alan Kulwicki's send-off party in 1985. We went to a live audience in 96, and for sure in 1997. And for the entire duration of our show, we've had Central Services Company Incorporated as our supporter and backer, and really we couldn't keep doing the show without it. So this car represents more to me, not just a cool toy we're going to give away. This is Gary Bohr's car. His son-in-law gets to drive. Let's welcome them now, and Bart Sievert and Gary Bohr. Guys, thanks for coming back on the show with us.
Jim, thanks for having us.
And I want to get right to it because this car represents one thing. We got a couple in here in the box. We're going to give these away in our Tuesday night shows. So starting this Tuesday, you can win one of those if you come to our show at Paulie's. But I want to start with the tie to Allen Kulwicki with these guys. And I'm glad you brought this, Bart. He's got a photo here. We got to see. We got this little stand here. Do this right. You don't need to see me. You've seen me all the show so far. But this picture is pretty cool for the Sievert family connection to Allen Kulwicki. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so my dad was very involved in racing, especially at Hills Corner Speedway. Had a lot of, history there, involvement through his company sponsoring some drivers involved with Whitey Harris.
Whitey won like 10 championships. I don't know, maybe more.
Absolutely. And then obviously with my brother as he went through it. But back in the day when AmeriGas was where he was working here, was sponsoring the event, they got to present the trophies to the winning drivers, and my dad actually got to present Allen Kulwicki a trophy for winning the feature that night, which, my dad passed this last September. But as we were going through photos near the end, this is one of his favorite photos that he always resorted back to. And I remember when he grabbed it, he looked at it and said, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And obviously everybody, you look at it, and you go, yeah, Dad, I know that's Allen Kulwicki. You obviously don't know the importance back in the time this picture was taken, but pretty cool stuff.
It is really cool, and I know with your dad and your uncle and all the racing they got to do at Hills Corner Speedway, it's so neat that you guys, a racing family, continue doing it now with this dirt modified. You're racing this year at Wilmot Raceway, right?
Correct.
You got a busy work schedule, so I'm glad you can sneak in some racing still as a family.
Yeah, absolutely. Between work and my youngest here in baseball, it's time. You want to spend time with the family. You got to obviously obligations with work, but got to have a little fun on the side. So that's where all this comes in.
That's cool, Gary. We're bringing you in now because I talked about how important you are to our show.
Well, thank you.
But I thank you for that. But when we had our show at Monreal's El Matador, where we took it after we were at the Springdale Inn, this is again decades ago. Terry Jeffords' son Joey had a karaoke system in the bar in the corner of the building. There's 3 bars, and we were in the end of the lounge, and then there was a center restaurant, and then there was a bar in the corner that Joey Jeffords would set up his karaoke system after our show on a given weeknight, and we had a lot of fun in there. And I will always remember, not Frank Sinatra's version, Gary, but your version of singing My Way. And at the end, you're awesome at singing Frank Sinatra, but at the end, you'd always sing it, and he did it Allen's way.
Correct.
That's pretty cool. Yep. What do you remember about Allen and how much fun you had with him and how much respect you guys as racers at every level? You've been around the racing for a long time.
I respect Allen basically because of his devotion and how much thought and time he put into racing. And that made me think about racing the same way. Honestly, I didn't befriend Allen much other than when I went to many of the NASCAR races, or we had doings around here for him. I was blessed to go with Terry Jeffords and or Marilyn Shaw, and that would bring me right up in front and forward with them.
Yeah.
And I got to speak with him, etc., but never truly befriended him. So.
But you also had following the same routes. You raced at Hills Corner Speedway. You raced there. You owned cars for a long time. And I want to take out one other moment. You're the owner of this car now. I like to pick your brain about the night that you had your super late model at Slinger Super Speedway.
Yep.
Painted up in purple. WKLH on the side.
Correct.
And it was Alan Kulwicki Memorial Feature Night.
Correct. Yep.
And
Jimmy the Wildman Watson.
The dirt guy.
The one driver that we had of many. But Jimmy is and was a very close friend of Alan's. And also he worked for Prototype Racing Engines at the time, and was involved with Alan's building of the engines, etc., and Jerry's building of the engines, and that's how I got acquainted at the time. Well, Jimmy was quite a wheelman. He really was, and he started on the outside pole of that race and ran away with it, basically. Little Al Schill was following him, and Conrad was behind, so he had some very stout competition in the race, and Jimmy won the Alan Kulwicki Memorial. My fondest memories of that was when he came back in the pits and tears were running from his eyes.
Oh, man.
That's what it meant to him. So,
and I know when Alan passed, I want to say Jimmy painted his car. He put a 7 on the side. He had his own did his own hand lettering. He said, "We're doing it for Alan."
Yep.
So that really meant a lot.
Well, you have to understand that night that he won the Alan Kulwicki Memorial, the night before that he won the
not the Wally George.
The Wally George.
Really?
Yes.
The two biggest races that I knew growing up, and he won both of them in the same weekend.
So he won them both on the same weekend, so that was quite a weekend. That was the Wally George was done in Bill Bailing's car, Bailing Circle Track, and then it was quite a weekend of partying. Let's just put it this way, because Jim definitely loved to tip him back once in a while.
Yeah,
So.
and we mentioned Wally George. That his race in his honor was at Hell's Corners for years. It was the big 50-lap race. It was the biggest race of the year, and to win that. But also, I think Wally really kind of set an early example as we sit here amongst people talking about Alan's drive.
Yep.
He passed away at an early age. He had a heart attack at Hills Corner Speedway, I think, in 1977. Wally George did.
Right.
I remember his motorhome coming back from the hospital that night, and we stood in the stands just waiting to hear what happened. We heard the hubbub because I always sat in turn 4, so I could see his hauler, his pit stall, in the pits, and we found out he had passed away. But he that year decided to do nothing but race.
Yes.
He was a full-time racer with 2 young kids going racing around Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And that was something we didn't have any idea anybody ever would do at Hills Corner Speedway.
Would decide to do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So. On dirt and pavement.
Yep.
Bart, you got to hang around with your dad. You got to hang around with your uncle. You got to hang around with your brother when he's driving. You drove after him, right? You guys ever raced together, your brother Brett and you?
No, never had that opportunity. It's probably a good thing because he would have whipped up on me pretty good. But he drove one of my cars once, wrecked it pretty good. But never had the opportunity to race against him.
What are your expectations this season?
Go forward, man. I've been in it for 10 years now. Have never won a feature event.
Okay.
So that's the goal this year. Is we're going to get that done and just have fun. Hang around, have fun. Bring the old, what we're talking about here. The old school. Show up at the racetrack, have a lot of fun, enjoy what you're doing, and be fast.
And one of the few places that we talk about how much money means and how sponsorship means and plays. I like to say this show's around for another reason, to give you guys a chance to talk about those who support you. Who is involved with your sponsorship and helping this race car win their first feature this year?
Yeah, obviously Central Services, Gary and Melody have been a great support, not only of me and my dreams and my life, but a lot of other racers, a lot of people that, come and go and shows like yours and in the local scene. But, also we have Champion Brick, Matt Adams, came aboard, and that's been, nothing but a blast. And then, we get help from, Thierry's and Bailings and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Expectations are pretty high, or you're pretty set on going to Wilmot and winning? Because I think
he's
the majority of your laps.
He's got a brand new car he's putting together.
Oh, okay then. Because I know you've raced a lot at Beaver Dam. I don't know how much you raced at Wilmot.
Yeah, Wilmot I raced pretty much last year, but Beaver Dam went to Tuesdays, which makes it a little more difficult with the family and work. But we'll see how it goes. If we start running good, man, the itch is there. We'll go anywhere we need to race as much as we can. So.
Well, we want you back on the show for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad you guys could make it today. Thank you for hanging out
absolutely.
with us.
Thank
I hope you're having fun with us. That's part of what we do. We like to
This
support.
is Racing Roundup.
Yeah,
no
baby.
doubt.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for being part of it again. How about nice hand for Bart Sievert and his father-in-law, Gary Bohr. Guys, thanks for coming down the show. And they brought giveaways. We do giveaways after every show, but not today. Today's not going to be a giveaway day. And I think the items you see in here, probably if you didn't bring them, you probably shouldn't take them home. So I know there's a lot of people that have brought some very invaluable items. Here's your picture back, please. Hang into that, Bart. Thank you. That was awesome. And the red, is it the red? Little Red Inn restaurant. Yep. That was the number 32. And my friend Max, who's here, Max Wisniewski, he actually built a model of that car. It's really cool. And I saw it on Facebook this morning. I got pretty excited. As we look through things, as we talk about things, yeah, we got more to talk about. We're going to talk more about Alan and his first opportunity to talk about or trying to sponsor. And we have a Random Lake, Wisconsin connection. We'll talk about that next on the show with Jerry and Elaine Miller on the show.
This special Racing Roundup show is coming to you live from the Brooks Pavilion at Allen Kulwicki Park, which was dedicated as a Milwaukee County park in Allen's honor on October 12, 1993. Like many of the seminal moments during Allen's racing career and after his passing, the Racing Roundup show was live from the park dedication in 1993. In 1985, one of our first shows held in an audience setting was at Alan Kulwicki's send-off party, days before he left for North Carolina to pursue his NASCAR dreams. Since then, we have followed Alan's amazing path, and today we are reliving some amazing moments with those who knew Alan best. And we're spending time with race fans that own some of the finest collections of Alan's memorabilia. If you are in the Milwaukee area, join us today at Allen Kulwicki Park. It's a celebration of Allen Kulwicki Weekend.
Smile. Welcome back to Allen Kulwicki Park. We're in the Brooks Pavilion. Again, this is available to rent. If you have an event coming up, you want to check it out. Greenfield Lions Club runs it. It's a Milwaukee County park. There's baseball diamonds. There's a really cool kids playground over as you approach it on Cold Spring Road. And, yep, we talked her into it. We're going to have a special time here with Jerry Miller and his wife Elaine. They are so much part of the fabric of Wisconsin racing for 6 decades. Let's welcome in the husband and wife duo of Jerry and Elaine Miller. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having us.
You guys have a connection to Allen Kulwicki, and I really am excited to tell people about it. I want you to tell it with us and for us. I remember talking to you last year at Daytona, and you said, we kind of had the reason why Alan got number 97 on his USAC stock car, right? Because you guys had that number as the Random Lake Miller Brothers team had a USAC team at the time.
We just started USAC same time Alan did.
Yep.
And he had number 97.
Mm-hmm.
No, he had number 99
from
USAC, and they assigned us 97.
They assigned you. You didn't have a choice.
Right, yeah, they assigned them to you.
Yep.
And so I got a hold of Terry Jeffords, and I said, we'd like number 99 if you want 97. So for $500, I'll give you number 97.
Wow.
He done deal, he said right away.
Great.
So,
wow.
and that was, $500 is a lot of money back in '79. So that's how we got to know Alan.
And didn't he race your car at one time too?
Yep, he drove at Milwaukee, the last race we had at Milwaukee. We won it with Dean Roper driving, and he drove our second car. He ended up 7th. He would have been better than that, but we ended up with a leaky valve cover.
Okay.
And his dad wasn't real happy about that.
Being an engine guy, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but anyway, that's the way it went.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Elaine, I want to bring you in here. You take all the pictures. Somebody's going to try to take your picture, I think.
Your son.
My son Sam's going to take your picture. So Elaine has more cool pictures at the racetrack for now, I want to say it's at least 6 decades, because how many years have you been going to Daytona?
62 years this
Consecutive.
year. 60, yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And Elaine, how many have you gone to?
I had kids in between, so I had to stay home.
Oh, man. I want to talk about the Hooters sponsorship.
Yeah.
Atlanta in 1991 was the 4th race of the season. Alan was unsponsored. He got $50,000 to race the Army colors at Daytona. there were 4 other cars that were sponsored by various military divisions during Desert Storm. So Alan got 50 grand, put the Army colors on the car, showed up the next 3, nothing on the race car. Red number 7 on the door, AK logo on the hood. Gets to Atlanta. 7 cars don't qualify, including Mark Stahl, sponsored by Hooters, and Alan Kulwicki wins the pole position at Atlanta in an unsponsored car. I'm going to say, what happened next, Jerry, because you guys are part of it.
Okay, Mark Stahl, I didn't know him at all, but I went up to him and said, hey, you got Hooters on the car, do you have to have a car in the race for them? He said, well, let me get the guy from Hooters, you can talk to him. So he came over and we talked, and he said, what do you need? I said, 5,000, we'll put Hooters on the hood. He said, who else doesn't have a sponsor here? I said, Alan Kulwicki, sitting on the pole, has nothing on the car. He says, could you take me to him? I said, sure, let's go over there. So we went over, talked to Alan. Alan said, for 10 grand, you can have the whole car. He says, okay, we got to make a call to Hooters. So he called up Bob Brooks, the president of owners of Hooters. We go to a small phone room at Atlanta. We didn't have cell phones then. There's a little 10 by 10 room with cell phones in it. And he called them up and he said, they'll call back in 15 minutes. So we sat there, chat for a while. Call back, they said, do both of them. So.
Wow. Because you had Evinrude as a sponsor. Jim Sutter qualified 22nd in your car.
Right.
Finished 24th in the race. But Alan won the pole.
Yeah.
And you guys swung the deal.
Yep.
That's cool.
So anyway, that night we had an announcement at Hooters restaurant about, and we invited Davey Allison's crew and Davey and Kyle Petty's guys too and stuff. It was my birthday that weekend, so they all got together. They did the announcement. Bob Brooks was there, his son was there, and Alan and his crew guys were all there. And then they had a birthday party. I got cake and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty neat with all the Hooters girls. So the following day, the girls all show up at the racetrack. Elaine takes them around to all the different teams. You can tell them about that, who you all seen there.
That was probably a really bad idea because nobody got any work done. If you're walking around the garage with Hooters girls.
Well, they really wanted to see Dale Earnhardt. Well, I went over there, I said to Chocolate, I said, could he come out? Well, he didn't really want to, but he did. But he was sort of crabby. You know how Dale was.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Well, you know more than I just, got to hang out and watch the black 3 go in circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys got to know a lot of people over your time. A lot of cool people. A lot of people that helped you guys.
You're one of them.
Well, thank you. A lot of friendships, too. I want to talk about Mike Joy and how much, when Mike Joy was racing a spec racer, sponsored by Xerox, he raced at Road America with 70 other cars. He always would stop by your shop when he ran his road race car, didn't he?
He stayed by our house.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, he stayed with us.
All right.
Yeah, and I didn't have coffee, so they had to go to the restaurant because I didn't know how to make it.
That's okay.
So at the race, he says, Road America, the start-finish line's way up on the hill.
Yeah.
He had to start like 80th, way down.
It was a long. I was there that day. It was a long, long tow. They were still in turn 14 when the leader
He
got
said,
the green.
I won't see the flags, so I stood on that walk across.
Yeah.
I said, I'll take my shirt off and wave it. Well, I did have
Purple
something.
shirt, yeah.
Oh, you had more than one shirt on. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So we had a good time.
Yeah. Kenny Johnson was on his crew that day.
Yeah, Ken Johnson, the
Remember
insurance
Kenny?
man. Yeah, race fans insurance man. He was
Yep.
my insurance guy.
Yep, yeah.
And Kenny was on your team, too. I remember
Sure he
him
was.
changing
Yeah,
tires.
and Bradley's team, too.
Yep. I remember Phoenix. You guys were, because you didn't run every race. You ran the most you ever ran in a year was 6. You tried to make 10, I think, in 1 year.
The televised ones, I was thinking that's what paid. We ran Phoenix, the race for, we qualified 5th.
Yeah.
That was the first time we were all there. That's when Alan won.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And you guys were pitted on the asphalt. You didn't have a garage stall per se.
Nope, we're out in the
But I love the
asphalt.
fact the sweat was there because it was 90 degrees in November, and we aren't used to that because your team's based in Random Lake, Wisconsin. But I remember seeing Kenny. His hair never was out of place. He's running around like crazy, sweating like crazy, and you guys did really well that day. It was
Those
pretty
were
cool.
fun days. Yeah.
So this Mike Joy guy, there's a story about some kind of beer involved with Mike Joy, Elaine?
That was Alan's
yeah.
That was Alan's wake.
Wake or the funeral that day?
Well, the same thing, funeral.
Yeah, funeral was the funeral.
So Mike Joy came up here. A lot of other NASCAR folks came up.
Yeah, we were getting in line, and he saw us, and we were way in the back, and he says, come here, come through the back door.
Okay.
And then afterwards, we went out with he and Trickle. And,
We went there years after that.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That's where this picture is from, actually. We had a couple
it
of radio
from there,
stations that remotes there, yeah.
Yeah, what did he say? Dick was drinking Ms.
Dick-
Miller beer,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, when Dick thought he'd grab him for the ketchup, I think, and he dumps the beer on his hamburger. Okay. And Mike Joy says, Dick, you always been my hero. He takes his beer, dumps it on the hamburger, too. They're both there. So,
Those are fun days.
Oh,
yeah.
man. Well, I had the good fortune of taking some photos you guys had, because you always go to Daytona. I was so happy to deliver photos you had that you may not have seen Mike Joy. And you said, could you give these to Mike? I said, absolutely. So I'm doing track public address for the track, so I ran them up there. I never saw Mike look through them.
Yeah.
But I wrote on the envelope who they're from, how many years, I think it was 59 years of going to Daytona.
Yeah.
And I was pulled to the side by a guy that does stats in the booth at NASCAR races, and he's in the booth, just like Ken Martin was in the booth for Benny Parsons and Bob Jenkins in November of '92 in Atlanta. There's a stats guy in there. He said, I saw those pictures.
Yeah.
Did you put those in there? I said, yeah. He said, man, we really liked looking at them.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. It was pictures of Mike racing and pictures of you guys hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And he said, we all had a really good time, and Mike spent like 10 more minutes he didn't have telling us about the pictures and what they were about. So
Right,
I delivered them, but I don't know if I ever told you that he got to see
yeah.
them, and he was really appreciative to have those.
You know what his wife's name is?
Gay.
Gail.
Yeah.
Gay Joy.
Yeah,
Gay Joy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah. It's such a. So when you guys think of Alan and what he did racing wise, and you're racing with him, you're racing against him.
Yeah.
You guys were racing a Cup before he got a chance, right? You guys were racing USAC a long time.
Yeah, we won 3 championships in USAC. But anyway,
and that was a big step for him to go from short track racing to some ASA, and then it seemed like every time there's a USAC stock race at the mile, he found a way to get a car, including yours, to race.
Yeah. No, Alan, Christmas night, he called me up and he says, how many coroners you think are talking about what radiator they're going to use at Daytona?
What gear to use?
No, radiator.
Oh, radiator, I'm sorry.
Because
okay.
they had the radiator cable one with less cores in it. Air would go through and that kind of
so
stuff.
he's thinking of that on Christmas and calls you.
Yeah, he said, how many coroners are talking to each other on Christmas Eve, you know?
Oh, my goodness.
Alan was a good guy. He really was.
Yeah.
We got along fine with him.
Yeah, we'll certainly miss him, for sure.
Yeah.
And great to see you guys here making the trek down. Are you going back to Daytona?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Gotta keep the string alive, right?
That's right.
Do you only go in February?
No, I go in November for Turkey Rod Run, too.
All right,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Bradley goes to that all the time, too, so.
And I talked to your son yesterday.
Oh, you did?
He said, make sure I mention that the Brad Miller electric carts are not just carts anymore. There's actually some really cool e-bikes.
Oh, yeah. He sold 8 or 10 of them this week already.
He said, Jimmy, you got to tell people.
Yeah.
He calls me Jumping Jimmy. Jimmy, you got to tell people. They go 25 miles an hour. They can last for 25 miles, and they're in all the cool colors we got our golf carts in.
Yeah, he sold 116 golf carts last year.
You had a part of that, didn't you? Did you sell some of those too?
I sold a couple of them, but only 2 of them went to golfers. The rest all went to people out of the villages all around by us. They're legal on the street. These are all street legal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's crazy. It's fun. Good to see you
get
guys still hanging
Get
around.
your name on the list.
I talked about that with him.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure he's going to be back sponsoring our show, and we got to talk about a lot of cool things about running e-bikes.
Yep.
I think I need those big knee pads and the big pink helmet with the big spike on it. I need one of those because I don't know if I'll do okay on them.
Right.
But there's pedals on them too, so you can still ride them.
Yeah,
like
either
bikes.
way.
Yeah. Good stuff. Always talking about fun things with you guys. Thanks for being here.
Okay,
Appreciate it
thank
very
you
much.
for having us.
Jerry and Elaine Miller, 2 of the gems of Wisconsin racing. Thanks for coming down and hanging out with us here from Random Lake. It's really great to have you guys on the show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Randy Day, who's in North Carolina. He may be one of the preeminent collectors. Michael Belger's here. He's wearing the Hooters jacket. Michael also and Randy are great friends. They know where the cool stuff is. They probably have it between the 2 or 3 of them. And Gary Radisky's in that group as well. It's great to have them represented. We're going to take a tour of Randy's garage and hang out with Mark Goodman, the man behind this event today, when we come back.
Welcome once again to a special presentation of the Racing Roundup Show, live from Allen Kulwicki Park. The Racing Roundup Show is now in its 39th season of covering the Wisconsin racing scene and the world of motorsports. Our regular Tuesday night shows fire up this Tuesday, April 4th at 6 p.m. Central Time, live from Paulie's Pub and Eatery just outside Turn 1 of the Milwaukee Mile. Like our show on Facebook and watch any of our shows live or at your convenience online at racingroundupshow.com, including last night's show held in the Kulwicki Garage at the UW Milwaukee Engineering Building. Thanks for joining us for the celebration of Allen Kulwicki Weekend.
I'm Jim Trado, back with you here, hanging out at the Brooks Pavilion in Allen Kulwicki Park in Greenfield, Wisconsin, at the corner of Highway 100 and Cold Spring Road. 3 miles that way is Hell's Corner Speedway, where Allen first started racing his dirt track racing. We're about 35 miles from where Alan Kulwicki started racing on the pavement at Slinger Speedway, and he raced at many other tracks around the country and Wisconsin on his way to racing in NASCAR. We're now going to bring in a guy that we wanted to talk to in a big way. Mark Goodman's been a friend of Randy's for a long time. Randy's in his home right now in North Carolina. And if you want to talk about cool stuff, he's got it. And Randy, let's welcome you into the show and ask where you're at right now and how far away are you from Alan's very first race shop in North Carolina? Randy, you got us? Can you hear us okay?
You can't.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear us okay, Randy? Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing you. Do you want to reestablish with FaceTime or switcher? What do you think, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing you, Randy. Okay. How about now, Randy? Can you hear us okay? Okay, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Okay. We'll give a second here. While we have a moment, I wanted to wait to the end, but I'm going to do it right now. We would not be here without this guy. Let's give a hand for Mark Goodman for putting this event on today, please. You've been a great supporter and help for a lot of people. Losers Car Club, you bought your Pinto wagon. If you recall, like I did at the Milwaukee Mile Infield, you saw a Dodge, what was it, a Charger?
It was a 70 Plymouth Sports Saddle Petty.
Right down the middle. Black on one side, Petty blue on the other.
STP colors on one side and I'm like, I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And here's what I want to do. And that's how it came about.
Well, it was pretty cool you did that. And I also know that you said, you know what, I want to live in Milwaukee the right way. You live on the backstretch of the Milwaukee Mile
I live
with
right
your wife,
outside of
Karen.
Turn 2.
Yeah.
It just so happens that when we were out looking at houses, Karen just happened to phone over and said, that's where we're going to live. And literally a year and a half later, we were moving in.
Wow.
And there was no for sale sign, no nothing on the house. It just happened to wind up that way. And we actually started out at the Piccadilly, which was directly behind here. That's the first apartments we have, which is, you can actually see the apartments from here.
Yeah.
So
when you decided, not for just this event, but you have how many years now rented out this Brooks Pavilion at the park for your Daytona 500 party for you and your friends?
The last count I had, I think, was 22 years at least. It's been going on at least 22 years. It started out as a crazy idea. Let's see if we can get the park in the middle of the winter. And they're like, sure. And it's been like 22 years.
Wow.
So.
And that was, so Daytona 2021, you had this idea, right?
That right after Earnhardt got killed, it was the year after is when we started doing it.
But as far as having a party here today, it was like a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been a lot of planning. The Alan Kulwicki fan Facebook page, I know. Thank you, everybody, for watching this show and tuning in. It's been because of this guy. We've got a great lineup of people that want to be part of this day. And I know if you can't be here, we'll have this on our racingroundupshow.com or racingroundup.net, same place. We'd love to have you take the show in. We are getting a chance to look around Randy's garage right now on the video. We're trying to connect with him audio-wise, but he's showing us his collection. This is his garage. He has literally every T-shirt ever made about Alan, legitimate T-shirts made about Alan. They're on the ceiling. He has panels. He has pictures. He's got prints. This is so special to have us dive into your garage here, Randy. He is actually 6 miles away in North Carolina from Alan's very first shop. Not the one you saw on video. Those were actually Ed Negree's shop. That was not the first shop Alan moved into when he had Bill Terry involved with his first NASCAR Cup operation in 1985 or end of 85 into 86. So that door, yep, that's legit. That's an Alan Kulwicki door, a fender piece off of the championship. I think that could be the Naturally Fresh logo is across the bottom of the Hooters car. That's there. That's a big chunk of. Thank you, Randy, for showing us as I'm talking you through this. I'm sorry we can't quite hear you just yet, but gas fill. I mean, that's amazing. Mark, you've talked to Randy over the course of time.
Randy actually drove up here last year for our Daytona 500 party.
Did he?
Just to see the inside of the building.
Cool. Now you know why. He wanted to see what's going on. Yes.
So Randy's been a good friend, and him and I've had a few bidding wars, but
bidding wars. Where do you guys find stuff these days?
Most of the time, it's on eBay
or
Facebook Marketplace. So But it's been fun. A little bit of a challenge with the master. Everybody calls him the master of the
Randy
collection.
is the guy?
Randy is the guy.
Michael Belger, we had on the show last night. He has some really cool stuff. I saw Michael around here with his Hooters jacket on.
Michael's starting to get there.
Where do you rank yourself?
Nowhere down the line.
All right.
Just
all right.
a few pieces and parts in here.
Well, you got this. Did you get that off of eBay?
I got that off of eBay.
This car is yours?
Yep.
Yeah,
and a
that's
few
cool.
others. I've got some hats and stuff. And
This is a heavy metal one, too.
Yep,
Cool.
that's the pink. And I may.
Sorry, I touched it.
I may.
I
be getting
now lowered the value by like $1.50. I touched it with my finger oil.
If things work out, I may be taking one of the doors that's over there against the wall home with me.
So I've not seen, because I've been kind of wrapped up in getting this show going, there is an actual race car
There's
door.
2 doors over there.
Which one? Would you mind bringing them over here, guys? Thank you, Justin. Justin was going to bring his Alan Kulwicki vintage car, but this door.
That door came off the 1980 car, from my understanding. The guy that's
hold it up.
As a matter of fact,
Oh, look at that. Holes in it. Look at that. Halo. Awesome. That's a real deal.
The person that actually brought these, he's standing right back here with glasses on. Wave your hand.
Thanks for bringing them, man. This is cool.
And he's got one that came off the 78 car.
All right, those are the red LPX days.
Yep.
John
so here's
Jeffords.
the other one.
Hey, John Jeffords. We got a red 97 door. You worked on this race car. You probably pounded this thing out 6 times and put it back on the car as a crew member for Alan back in the day. What year do you think this baby was?
78.
The first what? The first WLPX sponsorship was the red car. How cool is that? We got to hang out with that today. That's another cherished piece that you won't see any more of those, and it's really cool to have you guys think enough to come here and do this. And Randy was kind enough to show his collection as well. What else you got?
We do actually have Alan's drafting book from high school. It's sitting right over here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mark Dietrich loaned that one to us, and it's actually right here.
Bring that over here, 84. Thanks. Look at that. Basic technical drawing.
Yep. And he was the first one that was in it.
So other students used this book, but Alan's name was the first one to use this textbook. Wow, that's really cool. We got that. That was from high school?
Yeah, it was from high school.
Pius High School, about another mile from the Milwaukee Mile on 76th Street. I went there. I went to UWM too. I don't know why, but
we're about 5 blocks from there.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. That's really cool. We were trying to establish with Randy. What's the deal, guys? You think we're okay with Randy? Okay, we're still working on him. Great. I want to just find out his passion for this. So this park goes on. You have been involved at this park more than just Daytona 500 weekend.
We've helped out. We brought the car down here for the car shows and stuff, but mainly for the Daytona 500 party.
So tell us about the car show coming. The next time this park will be open for sure, we know, is when?
May 27th will be the Greater Greenfield Lions Club car show.
Okay.
They're probably expecting.
Oh, speaking of Lions Club, they got last call for food.
Last call for food.
Last call for food, right?
Last
okay.
call.
Sorry, continue.
But anyway, the Greater Greenfield Lions Club, they will be their annual car show, and they'll probably expect 200 to 300 cars here. So if you're not pre-registered now, good luck.
Wow. So you can come walk around.
You can come walk around. Yeah, the building will be open. This will be open to the public, and then the whole parking lot will just be crammed with cars. So.
What's the date again?
May 27th.
May 27th, okay.
It's a Saturday.
That's Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day weekend. Yeah. It's always Memorial Day weekend.
All right.
So.
Cool. Hey, Randy, can you hear us now? We're checking in on this. This is for real. This is not a movie set. This is Randy's garage. I just saw some Xerox sheet metal sitting there. Randy, you got us now?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Hey, welcome to the show, man. This is amazing. Thanks for the tour.
Oh, thanks.
What was your first collectible, and why was it Alan Kulwicki stuff that got you so hooked on him and collecting things for that had Alan's history with it?
Well, I just started becoming a Kulwicki fan, and I guess late '87 I started watching. '88 when he won the race, I was really overexcited. And '90, '91, I guess I built my first Alan Kulwicki model and started collecting die casts, and it all turned around. When the plane crash happened, I swapped everything off I had for Alan Kulwicki stuff.
Wow.
It just grew on from there.
So this is a 40-year or at least a 33-year commitment to you just saying, hey, I want to do this. I want to get my guy. What's the reaction been when you find these items or you share the story of the things you have about Alan? Let's go first. I'll divide the question to one. What's it like when you talk to someone who has an Alan Kulwicki piece of sheet metal that you talk to and maybe talk them into selling to you?
Well, a lot of pieces I have had to try to talk people into letting them go, but then there's been some pieces that's found their way to me by a lot of people, like Danny Cameron. He's responsible for this Xerox panel right here.
All right. We had Danny on the show earlier. Now you got a crew chair. That they didn't make many of those either.
No, the back of it was sent to me by Danny Cameron also.
Neat.
With the Xerox logo on it. They use it in the pits.
Yep.
I got the chair to put it on and all that. The wheel here was race used. It come from Thomas Smith. He made me a deal on it.
Cool.
And as far as everything else, I think the quarter panel, I believe, is from 93 Speed Weeks.
Okay.
Not 100% sure. The can, it come from Bill Terry's shop. Robin Finley, who runs the automotive place there.
So you were 6 miles away from that shop now, and they still had a can in that shop, Allen's first shop?
Yeah.
You got, wow. Awesome.
He said he couldn't prove that it was used in that car, but he was 99% sure that it was.
Cool. And
the panel there, it's not actually Alan Kulwicki car. That's from Justin Kreider's throwback.
Nice. Yeah, they have a throwback race every year in the Carolinas that they all do themed racing paint schemes on. That's really nice.
And all this stuff here from the Milwaukee Museum up there, the benefit they had, this was sent to Don Jeffers, as a matter of fact.
Matter of fact, if you wouldn't mind, Casey, could you hand me one of those cards? We have mementos here from last evening's gathering. Speaking of John Jeffords, we have some of these. These were actually given to folks who came last night, and we'll get you one, Randy, so you can have a full collection. These cards are produced by UW Milwaukee. On one side is Allen's diploma, and on the other side is actually the event information and a very inspirational quote from Allen on the back side. So we have some of these here for folks, and we got one for you too, Randy, to add to your collection. Thank you. What else you got there? What else you got there?
Up here's just a lot of cups.
A lot of cups. I've never seen a Cancuzi yellow like that one. That's cool.
Well, if it's Alan Kulwicki related and I get my hand, I'm going to get it.
So we've had the pleasure of talking to Mark Goodman, Gary Radisky, and Michael Belger last evening. You guys run a pretty close circle of looking for this stuff. It's got to be kind of a fun treasure hunt with these other cohorts in crime, isn't it, Brandy? Getting these cool items to have and hold and share and keep.
Especially me and Michael share a lot back and forth. We help each other out. Mark, I've sent him a few things. He sent me some things. Definitely want to throw a big thanks out to Mark for everything he's putting on here. And you, Jim, it's nice to meet you.
Same here. Randy, give us
Randy.
As we wrap up our show, could you do a favor and point upward to your ceiling? What you got up there?
Let me see what I can get down here if I can get on my knees.
It ain't just on the walls. These are T-shirts. How many T-shirts, Randy?
I think there's about 73 of them up there now.
Wow. That's a good number. That was Alan's first race car number, the year he graduated high school. That was on his first dirt car. So if you keep 73, I'm good with that. If you go to 97, that's cool too. Hey, Randy, thanks a lot for showing us this. This is really cool to have you carry on this legacy and just, it's in the, I mentioned to Gary about the Xerox uniform he has. The things you have and you care for enough, that's really neat that we can share this with you and let people know that you are definitely part of the legacy of continuing on with Alan and all the cool things you get to be a part of. And thanks for being part of this show to kind of show off your collection with us today.
I really appreciate you having me. I'm glad to show it.
Oh, man. Thank you, Randy. How about I say it for
Thanks,
Randy Day?
Randy.
Thank you, Randy, for your patience and connecting with us, and what a great collection of stuff he has. So we didn't show you everything that's inside the Brooks Pavilion. You need to come here yourself and check it out. There's Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. We got a car show here, right?
Yep.
We also have the ability to open this up. I mean, you can rent the pavilion. There's curio cabinets. There's race uniforms. There's Bush Pole Awards. There's posters. They're all over. The ceiling even has some posters on as well. You need to come here and check it out. You might have seen pictures online, but it's really kind of neat to do your own tour. And I suggest you do that by renting it from the Greenfield Lions Club or coming down on May 26th for the big car show. And I have some people to thank, Mark, but I'll let you go first because it's been a long process getting this together. Who do you want to thank?
Basically, the Greater Greenfield Lions Club for helping us put this together and then helping me jump through the hoops and get some technical stuff done. Certainly the city of Greenfield for allowing us to do this. We've got the where's Justin? He knows it. The Upper Vintage Midwest Stock Car Series. Of course, John Safro with Safro Motor Cars. Track Enterprises in the Milwaukee Mile. The Slinger Speedway, which we will be at tomorrow doing a walk-in tour.
Yeah, what's going on tomorrow? Let's get into that.
Breakfast is at 9 o'clock down here at Genesis, just down the road. From there, we are going over to the cemetery for a short visit, and then we're heading up to Slinger for a walking tour right around 11:30, 12 o'clock. We'll be up there. Of course, UWM for the thing that they did last night, and I've got a bunch of volunteers that helped me out with this. They're standing around. You'll see them walking around. Bruce, these guys here, just the whole volunteer people. They know who they are. You know, the ones that come in here and help you guys get set up and help me set up. And, you know, we couldn't do it without the volunteers.
Well, we want to thank you for your labor of love called Let's Do Something Cool for Alan, and we're all here because of it.
I do have to thank my wife Karen. Yep. She's been a big supporter and basically kept me somewhat level during all this.
And we would not have this park to celebrate with unless we had the people that began in 1993 developing this park. Mayor Jim Besson, Bob Trinastic, the late Jim Patterson, Soligo McDonald's owner, and Thumper Jim Roth. They all were part of this. Mm-hmm. And they all got a lot of people to put out a lot of money to get this building built and get the park to where it is today. And it's really something that's fun for families to enjoy as well. So it's cool that you get to hang out here on Daytona weekend as well.
Every Daytona 500, we have to have the party here. It's become a tradition.
We're kind of telling people that is it a private party, or are you inviting everybody to watch it?
It's a private, okay. But if people show up, we're not going to turn them away.
Oh, Karen says hard no on that. She can't buy that many buns for the manwich.
We obviously couldn't invite everybody, but if a few stragglers walk in the door, we're not going to turn them away.
And we got a bonus time. Randy is still giving us a tour. This is awesome. This is amazing. So you can see this show after it airs. We've had it live on our Facebook page. We have it live on RacingRoundupShow.com. We're going to post this show. We're going to post our show last night. I encourage you to join us every Tuesday, starting this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time in Milwaukee. We do it show, same place to find us, Facebook Live and on RacingRoundupShow.com, called The Racing Roundup Show. We begin our 39th season of weekly racing shows this coming Tuesday, and it's been our pleasure to have you as part of our fun in celebrating the Alan Kulwicki weekend. Thank you, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed our show. We want to thank you for allowing us to play a part in carrying on the legacy of Alan Kulwicki, Wisconsin's first NASCAR champion. The celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend rolls on tomorrow, Sunday, April 2nd, with a driving tour around the area. Details can be found on the Facebook page, Alan Kulwicki Fans. Please share this show with your friends and fellow race fans. Like our show on Facebook. Check out our Tuesday shows online at RacingRoundupShow.com. What Alan accomplished will never be equaled, and we can all draw inspiration from his drive, determination, and ability to achieve excellence. From his days at Badger Kart Club in Dousman to his winning ways on Wisconsin short tracks, on through to his NASCAR championship, Alan led by example and did it his way. It's a celebration of Alan Kulwicki weekend. This is Dean Strom on behalf of Jim Trado and our Racing Roundup show staff here at Alan Kulwicki Park. Dave Schmalzer, Matt Rupina, Sam Trado, thanks for joining us. We'll see you this Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central Time for the start of our weekly shows in our 39th season of the Racing Roundup Show. Thanks again, and have at it, racers.